Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another night of Kartrider Drift League. My name is Wolf. I'm joined by State. We've got a packed arena here, and it's going to be exciting. It's my first time casting Kartrider. I've been looking forward to this for a few weeks. Didn't get to do the first few days. Now I'm here, excited to cast with you for the first time as well.
Yeah, the casting team is finally fully assembled here with Wolf joining us. The fourth day of cast, the fourth caster arrives as was foretold, and man, it's going to be a good show today. We've got some excellent matches ahead of us.
We really do.
You know, I was a little bit sad on that opening weekend that we didn't have any ace matches, and then I watched Chobra and Peter cast on Wednesday, and they got 2 ace matches, and man, I was so jealous. So maybe we'll get some of that action today. We'll just have to see what happens.
I hope so. Ace matches are super fun. You never know who's going to come out, even if you have that expectation. But let's talk about the format of this tournament a little bit here. As if you're tuning in for the first time, we do have 8 teams here in our team matches. And of course, they are going to be advancing to a double elimination bracket, those top 4 who do make it. So really important to get first and second if you can. It'll send you directly to the upper bracket finals. You'll have an extra life. If you lose there, you play again on the bracket, lower bracket finals, excuse me.
That's a round robin, so everybody will play everybody in the team portion. Means we have a lot of team matches ahead of us. 2 of those will take place today, as 40 million Korean won is up for grabs for that first place prize. In total, a lot of money here just for the preseason.
And if you take a look at our standings right now, you know, everyone has played at least 1 game. Obviously, some teams have been able to play a little bit more, so 2 matches for a lot of our teams. But Liiv, SANDBOX, KWANGDONG, FREECS sitting at 1-0 right now. Will both play their second match of the tournament tonight, and definitely 2 of our big favorites here as well.
Yeah, and we'll see if they're able to maintain that undefeated record. Liiv SANDBOX will be playing against ReBoot here later today in the second match of the evening. Sensation versus the KWANGDONG FREECS here in match number 1, as I preempted the graphic that we have right here.
It's all good. I'm really looking forward to both of these matches, but I think both of them do have clear favorites, right? KWANGDONG FREECS and Liiv SANDBOX, definitely the stronger teams here we expect going into these matches, but we'll see if some upsets can happen, as a lot of these teams are still learning Kartrider Drift. It's only been out for a short period of time in the pro scene. We're in our first preseason here for Kartrider Drift League, so there's still a lot of improvement to be made. We will, of course, have the solo matches after both of our team matches later on. It is Group C, and we have great players returning like Cosu, who haven't played for a very long time coming out of the military. And then you have players like Chorong and Han, who are playing their very first Kartrider tournaments.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag here in Group C. We have some Kartrider veterans, we have some up-and-comers that are looking to kind of make their name known here in the KDL. So as opposed to the groups of death that we had in day 1 and day 2 of the KDL, getting a little bit of a taste of everything here in the second weekend.
And here's Sensation. It'll be our first team that we're going to introduce for today, playing against the KWANGDONG FREECS in what will be a best of 3 here. If you're new to Kartrider Drift League, we play this format, and coming out with the big guns!
I love it! Hojun, guard, percent, and speed coming out onto the stage. A lot of happy energy here coming out of Team Sensation as they look to take on perhaps the favorites to win this whole preseason, the KWANGDONG FREECS, as you see them right here on stage. A lot of fans here in the crowd coming out to support their favorite players, their favorite teams.
Yeah, and Hojun is the Kartrider GOAT, the Emperor, a player who has won so many titles in his career that you just have to respect him. He's back, returned here for Drift, and is a big favorite going to this. But KWANGDONG FREECS on the other side, definitely a fan favorite. And like you said, one of the teams that could win it all going into this best of series. I think that they're definitely really favored. But we'll see if some surprises do come through, because anything can happen in these, especially with item mode, where things get chaotic. As Spear as well and Cool both playing in the individual tournament to start things off. Cool having a much better run than Spear so far, so at least now for Spear, it can focus on the team league.
Yeah, but top to bottom, I mean, World, Cool, Spear, Songbin, that is a star-studded roster, and oftentimes you see these Kartrider Drift teams when they only run a 4-player roster. You got to wonder, how are you going to survive without that item ace, that 5th roster spot? But here we have 2 hard-hitting teams confident enough in their players to just run the full 4-man squad.
Our Sensation, speaking of item mode, haven't been as strong there. 1-6 currently in the mode. As you can see there, they're awakened the Emperor's instinct after the first win. All that remains is a winning streak.
Yeah, Sensation going to be looking to try and add to their win total, standing 1-1 right now overall. Would love to take a victory here over the Freaks.
Yeah, coming off of a win against Aura, and really, you lost to Liiv SANDBOX 2-0. No shame in that. So definitely time to start that streak. And long time no see, as you say, KWANGDONG Freaks. See if they can bring victory tonight to start that streak.
Yeah, a lot of old faces, a lot of new faces coming out here in Kartrider Drift. We really are kind of ushering in the beginning of a new era here at the KDL Preseason. These legends, these veterans, and also these rookies who, in their own time, will become legends themselves, are starting to pave that way right here, right now, the first couple weeks of KDL.
Yeah.
Team average ranking first, individual average ranking first. This is the KWANGDONG Freaks. Absolutely, just stacked.
Yeah, a very successful Korean esports organization. Why are you so late? We've been dying to see you. Bit of a quote from The Glory, I believe. And yeah, this team definitely in high spirits today. I think the massive favorites, especially considering that in their last match, they actually looked very good in item mode against Rocks. And on the side of Sensation, their weakest mode has been item historically. So winning speed, I think, is really going to be the name of the game here for Sensation, especially considering they have the Emperor on their side. As you can take a look at now the speed track list as we do start with the speed mode here. Some bans coming through.
Yeah, bans coming from Sensation will be Winding Slopes and Zigzag Timberland. For the Freaks, they will be banning World Tour, New York Rally, and Boostwood. And we're going to be starting on track number 1, Glacier Extreme Stadium. Terracotta Twister, my personal favorite here in this match.
My personal least favorite is I've had some really rough experiences in my ranked games.
We were talking about this before we came live today, you know, our favorite tracks. You said the same thing about Zigzag Timberland.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, those are like my top 3. How do you hate these ones? But yeah, there's a lot of punishing turns on these tracks. There's a lot of kind of precarious ledges you can find yourself in. In Zigzag Timberland, it's a little bit more about hitting those walls, but in Terracotta Twister, you get to the indoor section, and it gets chaotic, man, especially in squad speed with people trying to sweep you out.
Yeah. I do like the choice here of Sensation, the Glacier Extreme Stadium. That is definitely one of my favorite tracks, and it has been a very strong go-to for a lot of our teams in our first round. It's very commonly picked first, and speaking of, we are going to go to Glacier Extreme Stadium right now for our first track. And we're off.
All right, let's see how things shake up coming into the first turn here on this 2-lapper Glacier Extreme Stadium. Cool in the lead, but just by a hair with Hojun and Speed right behind him. As top of the peloton, still very tight, Wolf.
Yeah, it really is. Cool, though, maintaining that lead, but dropping back a little bit here as we move into this next turn. See if he can actually grab this with a tight turn. He actually gets a collision here with Hojun, and will lose a little bit more of that speed, trying to regain that top 2 spot.
Yeah, and Speed and Hojun, the 1-2 punch here for Sensation, are going to do their best to try and fortify the top of this position, but Cool does not want to give them any chance. You see him skirting past, actually using a little bit of drafting there, coming into these hairpin turns. Will he be able to pass Speed?
He's so close to him here on this hairpin, but Speed is doing a great job of actually blocking his advance right now. We'll get a draft here, see how risky he takes this turn.
Quite a bit of conservative lines right there. No one wants to, you know, precariously get bumped or swiped into that ravine. As now Speed losing a little bit of momentum. You see actually Sungbin coming from seemingly nowhere to try and contest the top of the pack, but Sensation with 3 players here in the top 4 positions are in a commanding role.
Yeah, and Cool really needs to hold on to this first place spot right now because Spear and Sungbin are actually falling back behind again, and in order to win this, someone is going to need to get that top spot. Right now, Sensation in a commanding lead, and Cool's actually lost control. Spears moved up to top 3, but a 1-2 victory here may be on the cards for Sensation if they can hold on to this.
Yeah, coming into the next hairpin turns, Hojun and Speed going to try and hold on to number 1 and number 2 and secure that victory here for Sensation in the opening speed round of the matches today. Finish line 500 meters away.
Yeah, it's looking really great here for Sensation at the last moment. No one can pass.
Nope, no one's going to pass. Speed and Guard with a 1-2 finish are going to secure that win, but overall, 4 out of 5 spots in the top 5 there, going to Sensation in a really commanding opening track.
Yeah, pretty one-sided start here as Cool did compete there in the top 3 for a long time, but wasn't able to have anyone join him up there. And that 1-2 was a big threat they had to try to push for. Spear coming at the last possible second, but wasn't able to actually close that gap. Ends up being the only one in top 5 here. And this is what Sensation need to beat the KWANGDONG Freaks, because the item mode hasn't been their strong point, but a very good showing here on this first track.
Yeah, the Freaks, for how star-studded their roster is, they did show a little bit of mortality there in the opening weekend when they went up against Rox Esports. Yeah, they won 2-0 in 2 best of 5s, but yeah, it was close. It was 3-2 in speed mode, 3-1 in item. And the question is now, coming against the veteran team Sensation, will they be able to hold on and meet the expectations the fans have upon them?
Yeah, I think it would be huge to see Sensation bounce back in a big way. Like I said before, no shame in losing to Liiv SANDBOX 2-0, one of our big favorites too, but if they can bounce back, beat the KWANGDONG Freaks and actually start a winning streak, that's exactly the momentum you're looking for.
A lot of positive energy here on the side of Sensation. Going to be riding that momentum here from the first track as we're getting ready to go into track number 2, Terracotta Twister. Let's get to it. All right, and the racers are off. We'll see who's going to get the better end of this opening trade here as World actually off to a fantastic start.
A huge lead for World, and actually Sungbin catching up here very quickly too. If they can hold those top 2, it becomes very difficult to break. World will be competing in solos later today, so that momentum for him is actually really important too. If you can have a great team match leading into that one, you're going to be feeling great.
Yeah, but I'm liking this lineup a lot more here for the Freaks coming in here to the opening part of lap number 1. Sungbin, Cool, and World in commanding spots, controlling not only first place, but also the midfield as we enter this indoor section.
Yeah, Percent here actually taking the lead on some of these tight turns. He's been heavily criticized by the fans for some of these turns and his ability to extend his drifts, but looking very impressive here at the beginning of this, holding that first place, and he needs to, because right now KWANGDONG Freaks have a commanding lead across the rest of the places here.
Yeah, Percent's gonna have to do his best job to just hold on here, but it's hard in a 1v2 situation as World and Sungbin just use their combined powers to actually manhandle that position and take top 2 spots in. Now it's a little bit of a difficult game here for Sensation. See Cool with some fantastic body blocking. The players from Sensation are eventually going to be able to pass him, but look at how much space is opening up for World and Sungbin.
Yeah, Spear is actually doing a great job sweeping here as well, preventing Guard and Percent from getting through, because they need to take some risky turns here, look for a draft catch-up, but they're just not able to do it, unfortunately. Spear just completely blocking them out. It almost looks like this one's all said and done here. Guard, the only one who could challenge right now, and he's getting that collision into the wall here, is really going to hurt his ability to catch up now. May just be a 1-2 finish.
Yeah, Hojin with a bad collision there as well, and World and Sungbin, it feels like they are running away with this one as we are 500 meters away from the finish line, and Guard, he's going to need a miracle if he's going to catch up, but this is going to be us tied up 1-1.
Yeah, very commanding victory now here for KWANGDONG Freak. So, you know, choice of map here, choice of track actually coming big into play. These teams having great preparation, but World with such a great start here at the beginning of the course and just not able to actually pass. When you have a 1-2 lead like that and a strong sweeper behind, it's so difficult to actually break through because the team that's behind has to take riskier drifts, has to go for inline turns a lot more aggressively to try to catch up and get some draft points. When you've got somebody like Spear just constantly blocking you and creating collision, he doesn't need to actually place well himself. As long as you get World and Sungbin in top 2, that's all you need.
Yeah, you broke it down perfectly there. And that sweeping roll coming out in spades there, as they're going to be able to secure that 1-2 spot and get the map win. Cool also with some excellent body blocking as they were able to create enough distance between their top 2 players and the rest of the pack that you're never going to be able to draft the player in front of you and close enough distance to really contest those top 2 spots.
Yeah. Let's head into our third track, Village, Bayside Bridge Run. Here we go, and Sungbin actually holding the record on this track here this season. And he's off to a great start in first place at this moment in time.
Yeah, KWANGDONG FREECS coming strong out of the gate, but really nice tight line here coming out from guard as he's going to close the distance here, get in drafting range from Sungbin, trying to contest that top 2 spot with speed right on his tail. And you know, track number 1, track number 2, it kind of was lopsided from start to finish, but right now it's quite hotly contested.
Yeah, Spear looking like it was looking for an aggressive sweep there, but actually kind of botches it and ends up falling back with Cool in 7th and 8th place right now. And now top 2 places occupied by Guard and Speed. Sungbin trying to challenge here with World, but knows the sweeping coming through from Hojun.
A lot of nice defense coming out of Sensation right now as they know they want to just retain those top 2 spots. Let the cards fall where they may, as Speed with a little bit of body blocking, they're going to lose some momentum, but Hojun and Percent pick up the slack there, and they're going to be following behind guard.
Yeah, Spear and Cool just so far behind here, trying to actually break through, but they're blocked out as well by Percent. And this is a very close one here, but right now Guard's still holding that top spot. Sungbin can't afford any mistakes here as we're in the final lap.
Yeah, about a third of the way through this final lap. A Sensation in a commanding position, holding both the 1 and 2 spot, but the KWANGDONG FREECS are right behind them. And if they're able to make some late game plays here and make some passes and go for that 2-3-4 win, we might have an upset here in map number 3.
It's going to be very close here as we reach the final part of this. Sungbin looking for some draft catch-up here. They moved into 2nd and 3rd.
2nd and 3rd are held right now by the FREECS. Hojun still in first place, going to take some tight lines here with the finish line just 100 meters away, and it looks like Sensation by a hair. No, the 2-3-4 finish coming out of the FREECS at a 20-19 point.
Oh man, just barely able to come through there and get that 2-3-4 finish to take it by a single point. The margin of error so low here, and it looked like Sensation had this one in the bag, occupying those top 2 spots for so long with some great sweeping there in the first part of the 2nd lap. And Cool was able to actually go from last to 3rd here in such a quick period of time to actually occupy 3rd place. And look at the distance between these players.
It's 0.08. It's 100th of a second that separated victory from defeat here in track number 3. That is the fine line, the razor's edge that these teams are competing for. It's not a 10th of a second, it's 100th of a second that determines who wins map number 3, and it will be Sensation taking that track in a truly photo finish. I mean, coming into that final run, I thought the FREECS had it, you thought the FREECS had it.
It looked locked up, but all of a sudden, you know, things could change in an instant. Now, moving into Desert Construction Chaos here, which could be our final track.
Yeah, we'll see. They're going to be able to close it out. Desert Construction Chaos, track number 4, match point. All right, and the racers are off here. FREECS actually up 2-1. I misspoke earlier there as they are here looking to secure this win in the 4th track. But Sensation with Guard and Percent both in 1st and 2nd place right now in a commanding spot.
Yeah, Spear's positioning has been really good here. He's always been able to keep a spot in top 4 in the first few moments of every single track, and he's now going to have to be kind of the point player here for KWANGDONG FREECS to retake control of this, because his sweeping has been fantastic. In terms of getting up into the top spot, though, he hasn't quite been able to do so. And it's been Sungbin who's always at the head, always trying to look for that first place spot. But now he's going to have to be supported by Spear. And KWANGDONG FREECS to close this one out right now. Those 2 players are really going to have to come up big here.
And it's very difficult to make passes happen here. A lot of 90-degree turns, a lot of uphill slopes coming in on Construction Chaos, but Spear doing his best, trying to get to drafting distance here with Sungbin right behind him as the FREECS, they really want to close this one out and go into that item mode where they should have the advantage.
Yeah, using each other to actually create a draft there, so pulling each other up together here to catch up, and the distance is actually not something that can be, it's definitely closable. The gap is closable, so I'm trying to say here, and Sungbin's moved into 2nd here in the 2-3. Definitely not a bad place to be as KWANGDONG FREECS. We need to see Cool and World, though, catch up, though, if they're going to take this one. Right now, still Sensation having Guard and Percent in the 1-3. They have a huge advantage.
But look at Sungbin taking these tight lines. Even without drafting, he's going to be able to close the distance here on Guard coming into the uphill section. We'll see if he's able to finally make that pass. Look at the distance, it's so close, even bumps into guard as guard is gonna try and body block, but Sungbin just by a hair takes the inner line. Gonna be able to pass guard there, and that gives Freaks a fighting chance.
It really does. If he can actually take that first place, there's a real chance here, and we are getting so close to the finish. Can he hold on to this? Oh, collision here. He's taking a huge lead now.
Yeah, that's shaking things up a lot right there. Sensation losing a lot of momentum with that collision, and Sungbin creating distance between him and second place as the KWANGDONG Freaks, look at the bottom left of your screen, 24 points to 15. As Sensation, they're going to try and make a Hail Mary play, try to block some more players, but it's going to be the Freaks sweeping in first, second, and third with Sungbin, after the previous track, winning by 100th of a second, is going to come in first place here and deliver the Freaks the match win.
Yep, that's going to be the match win here for Team Speed, but that was not a choke. That was just great play from Sungbin. He took every risk he could to get those tight corners, and this is a track where, as you mentioned, all of these turns are basically at 90-degree angles. It's really incredibly difficult to get a pass to happen like that, and not only is he doing it, but the rest of his team is trying to knock Percent back, and he ends up falling behind massively, and not only do they get control of first place, but the rest of the team comes up to match, and really risky plays pay off here for KWANGDONG Freaks, and they'll take the 1-0 lead in this series.
And it's honestly phenomenal how well Sungbin was able to close the distance there, especially heading into the uphill section, because, you know, when you don't have any draft, it's all about momentum, maintaining that momentum, and taking the tightest possible line. So he really needed to kind of thread the needle, barely come around every single possible corner, save every microsecond that he could possibly to close that distance, and he was able to do it without any imperfection.
Yeah. Take another look at this. You can see how Sungbin and Spear are using each other to draft together like I was talking about, and they ended up making a great duo here to actually approach guard here in the first place spot. And look at the sweeping, again from Spear. His sweeping has just been phenomenal so far in this match. And I think that's a big reason why Sungbin had such a fighting chance, because normally you can't catch up on a map like this unless you have someone blocking for you, because otherwise people are going to overtake you. They're just going to prevent you from taking those risky turns.
Yeah, and you know, before all of these tournaments, we ask the players, you know, what role do you play on your team? Are you a sweeper? Are you a runner? Are you the item ace? Are you the speed ace? And oftentimes, you know, someone will just declare that. But the Freaks are, I think, the only team where, of course, World is their speed ace, but they say everybody else is a runner. They're all about speed all the time. But the truth is, at their skill level, they can really just do anything. And we saw that there was some fantastic sweeping, fantastic teamwork as they're going to get that 3-1 win. And now, item mode.
Yeah, moving into item mode here, you can see the bans Istanbul Sunset Plaza and Faroes Pass taken away here, as well as Gangnam Streets and World Tour London Night. So heading into this one, we do have Cogwheel Crush for round 4, one that has crushed my dreams many a time when I'm playing item mode at home, as there's a lot of obstacles on this particular track.
Yeah, I hope we get some Map 4 just to see it.
Me too. Motherload has been another really fun one, and Polar Halfpipe is a really fun track to cast. I haven't cast it yet myself, but watching games of it so far, I'm looking forward to potentially, if this goes to 5, getting my first chance.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun tracks here, a lot of fun maps overall here at the KDL. Devs have done a great job of not only taking tracks from the original Kart Rider, but also kind of bringing in some fresh air, some fresh life here in Kart Rider Drift, as well, we're getting ready to go into Forest Mushroom Caves. Track number 1 here in item mode, Sensation versus the Freaks.
And off we go on our first track for item mode. Percent taking the lead here early. His guard's going to hang back and try to get some upgraded items here. The lower your placement, the stronger the items you can get, so he instantly gets a lightning off the beginning of the round to give his team a huge lead.
Yeah, that Thunderbolt's really nice, actually. Thunderbolt, in addition to, I think, a UFO, stalls every single driver here for the Freaks. But of course, as we've seen time and time again in item mode, it's very much about setting up for that ultimate end game, for that one final push, the final lap, 500 meters out from the finish line. It's how your team sets up in position with an item roster going into that role as opposed to this, which is really more about just posturing, you know?
Yeah, it really is about posturing, trying to cycle through and get the correct items for the final stretch. But right now, with the lead that Sensation has, it's pretty massive. Remember, Sensation historically hasn't been very strong at item mode here, so this could be a huge upset here on our first track if they can hold on to this. Don't have any great defensive setups here except Cool holding onto that Angel.
Yeah, but as you see, in item mode, things like that, they can just turn on a head
they really
instantly.
can.
I mean, the FREECS, Sensation had a massive lead. If it was speed mode, you would almost think the thing's over, but the FREECS, after that, just able to take 2 of the top spots, and we're going to be heading into the final lap now as another rocket comes in. I think that was Sungbin, perhaps, that got jostled by that one, as Spear now the lead racer here for the FREECS.
Yeah, trying to actually deny some item pickups here unsuccessfully.
DogWorld getting abducted.
Right back down to earth, but Sungbin actually having both the Magnet and the Angel set up here, he's in a fantastic spot because he can block anything coming his way, and even if something does, he should be able to Magnet his way to first.
Yeah, these are actually some insanely stacked.
It's stacked!
Items. It's all Magnets and Nitrous and Angel shields coming in here to the finish line, Wolf.
All right, Cool. Still holding on to that Angel. Gonna pop it right at the end here. There it is.
All right, and the FREECS are going to be the first ones. No, it's actually guarded by a hair. It's going to pass there in the last moment as there are so many Magnets popping off.
So many Magnets coming through, and the Angel not able to actually secure him that spot. He held it to the last possible second, but perhaps if he had cycled the item earlier, might have been able to get a different edge there. Was just hoping he was going to have the edge with the Angel itself for someone on his team to cross that last possible second, but feel like a little bit of a goofy expression here because this came down to, as you can see, 0.1 second here, an incredibly close finish, but Guard just barely takes it in the end.
Yeah, well, Guard's going to win that one there for Sensation. That's just kind of the way it goes there in item mode, and one of the more stacked item finishes that I think we've seen so far here in the KDL. Oftentimes we'll see, you know, just a couple of players gunning for that final spot with either 2 Nitrous or maybe a Nitrous and a Magnet, but it felt like everybody that was close to the finish line had both of those, or some combination of the two. And when you get like that, I mean, item mode, it's already chaos, but from that point on, it's just true, unadulterated chaos. It's impossible to predict what is going to happen.
Well, we are going to move on to our second track of item mode to see if this one gets tied up. It's Factory Brody's Groom, excuse me, for track 2.
All right, and item mode continues here. Will Sensation be able to deliver?
It's
2 more track wins.
Brody's gloom because nobody picks Brody in the pro scene. It's really sad. No one ever plays as him. That's why he's very gloomy.
Is it the actual lore? Is that canon?
That's the wolf lore on this map. But going into this one right now, you can see an early lightning is going to come through here, which is going to give a huge opportunity to the FREECS to actually pull ahead here. No great defensive items just yet at the top of the pack, so we are going to see some shifts.
Yep, a lot of obstacles here on this track as, Guard gets hit by a rocket right before going through that booster there as the FREECS, Sungbin, World, and Cool holding the 3 top spots. Hojun right behind him.
Yeah, this part of the map gets a little bit tricky. Barricade coming up here too, actually just to add insult to injury. Cool's also holding onto a barricade, which can be very frustrating to play into. But that's an item that very rarely impacts pros because they're so incredibly gifted at avoiding obstacles at the last possible moment.
Yeah, and also preempting them. You see the same thing with water balloons where like World right now, Hojun right now, they're hugging the edge of this because they want to be on that outer line to avoid any water balloons that might come their way, and they will have time to react to any barricades if need be. Hojun going to be able to get a second item there. Nitrous.
See if he can hit the banana.
Yeah. He went for it. He went for the nanner. Wasn't able to connect.
Well, luckily for Hojun, he's able to avoid that water bomb too. Very close.
Oh,
not this one!
Not like this!
Oh, the guy has to pop his Angel. He was going to get chained by those items together.
But almost 100 meters away, and he's going to pick up a Wisp and a Shield. Those are not very good for closing distances. World with an Angel Shield going to call that comms out. Wisp will connect with the player behind him. Is actually Hojun.
Super close.
Yeah, gonna take the lead here.
Oh, the Angel Shield. Gonna block him, and he's got a Nitro.
Oh, the UFO abducts him! Hojin, will he be able to finish this one now? He's using the UFO now, and he does by a hair deliver the second track win there for Sensation as they go up 2-0 here in item mode.
And what a big turnaround. You know, I don't want to keep harping on it, but a team that had only won one track of their 7 items, item team modes before today, now starting off with a 2-0 lead, and that's why the Magnet is the coveted item to finish the track with. It's just going to be so powerful, pulling you over the edge, and if not you, one of your teammates as well. You just pull that leader back, and one of you guys, hopefully, will actually cross the finish line first. You can see again, just by a hair's breadth, Hojin takes it, and this could bring us to a tie series if they can win a 3rd in a row here. But, I mean, a pretty tense one already.
Yeah, it's been a great match so far. FREECS winning on speed, but now Sensation up 2-0 here in item mode. Just need one more track win to secure that ace match, that 1v1, best of one, winner takes all, which I want to see, you want to see.
I want to see it.
The fans want to see it. Everybody here wants to see it. Are we going to get it?
Only one who doesn't want to see it is KWANGDONG FREECS. They want to get a reverse sweep on the second one to bring us in so that they can, of course, get the best possible score, of course. This is a huge water balloon here across the corner, and this is a surprise banana. As you say, you want to stay on the edge because you want to avoid those water balloons, which will hit massively AoE right in the center. But because of this, banana's preemptive. Both players playing that extremely well. It's weird to think about like a banana peel in a professional racing game can be so impactful. But not only is he playing well around the water balloon, but the placement of the banana is so good too.
Yeah, just preempting him. Got right in front of him, then dropped that banana, spun out Hojin, but Hojin was able to make it back there with the Magnet. Will he be able to come here with another win? Sensation looking to finish it out on Motherlode. All right, match point here for Sensation as the FREECS are off to an early lead, but as we've seen time and time again, and as Guard is happy to show us, you know, that speed doesn't matter too much. It's all about the items here in item mode.
Yeah, and the double Magnet he picks up here, unfortunately not going to be as useful as some of the other items he was looking for, the Lightning Bolt in particular. So it's a greedy strategy. It can pay off. We've seen it pay off actually for Sensation already in this series, but won't be the case this time. He's just going to use the Magnet to pull back up into top 5. At least that's the attempt. As up here in the top side of things, Spear and Percent battling it out.
Yep, everybody coming through this short little shortcut here, and significantly less dramatic fashion than you have in speed mode. You know, that's a pretty tight corner. It's tough to get that perfect all the time, but here in item modes, all about the items.
And
it's a marathon, not a sprint.
The ability to build Nitro by drifting is disabled in item mode, so you need to use your items to gain speed, and doing things like tricky drifts are less important. You just want to make sure that you can hold that first place spot and use your items correctly. You do have to drive well, but it's not the same level of precision that you're looking for in speed mode.
And actually looking at the mini-map here, I'm a little concerned for the FREECS. Now, this is a 3-lapper here on Motherlode, so we do have some map left to go, but World and Sungbin for a long time there had some distance between him and Speed and Hojin, but I mean, you start talking about these things, and by the time you finish, they've already shaken up, you know what I mean?
Exactly. that's how quickly things could change in a game like this. And right now, you can see the items held here as a UFO EMP. Not going to be too useful unless the EMP, or rather the UFO comes out, so we'll actually cycle it here. Now Speed having both Magnet and the shield. He wants to hold on to that Magnet for the final stretch if he can. Here's the UFO.
UFO going to be connecting there, but the thing about this is you do want to hold on to the double Magnet, but there's so much distance between now and the end of the race that you kind of wonder, do you want to cycle? Do you want to try and get Nitrous as well? Do you want to try and get a shield as well?
I think ideally, Sungbin and Spear need to cycle and get an Angel. Okay, they have one. Guard does. I think one was just used by KWANGDONG FREECS, so Cool doesn't have any defensive items here. 400 meters to go.
All right, 300 meters out as Guard with a shield and the Water Wisps in the lead here for the FREECS. 100 meters to go, and Spear with massive speed is going to secure the bag there for FREECS, and kind of the opposite anticlimactic finish here in track number 3 as the FREECS get a much-needed track win.
Yeah. And on that narrow track that you take to go above, the distance is shorter, but if you're below and you have the Magnet, you can actually just pull ahead from below. You just suddenly appear as they go over the top of it, and you actually get that advantage. So really nice magnet tech there coming through, and they're able to take this one out. A very close race though, Spear able to close it out for them in the end, and Kwangdong Freaks will not go down without a fight.
Yeah, that was a nice finish there. One of the larger gaps between two different teams in a finish on item mode that we've seen. I think almost 3 seconds separating the Freaks and Sensation, as the Freaks just had the Wombo combo set up to perfection there.
Yeah, blocking the exit there as well. But you know what that means, State? It means we're going to a 4th map, which is going to be the Cogwheel Crush, where anything can happen. You've got to keep your wits about you on this one. There's a lot of obstacles to go through. Let's go to our 4th track here, Factory Cogwheel Crush. Off we go. Sensation still on match point here, but Kwangdong Freaks fighting back in a big way.
Yep, Guard going to be picking up double nitrous there. Slows down to get the double items, and we'll see. He's able to get happen here, cycling out another nitrous for... Oh, that switched so fast, I actually don't know what he got.
I think he got a UFO, but he was able to use it instantly, so it disappeared. His Guard's now holding onto the lightning as well. He's going to toss that one through here onto Cool, who's also being magneted.
Yep, just items going every single way, as if Cogwheel Crush wasn't complicated enough already.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, this is a 2-lapper as opposed to the 3-lapper on Mother Mode that we had on the previous track here. So we're about a third of the way through this race already, as you see Cool getting abducted there by the aliens. His percent gets abducted too. I don't think he's going to mind that too much. He's just going to wait outside that speed boost and close the distance a little bit here coming out.
Yeah, Seungmin going to cycle through and grab a shield here, tossing away his homing water balloon. So now he is somewhat safe up here. He wants to keep that magnet if possible. Doesn't want to use it. Is going to get drafted on here though, and see actually some item denial attempts as the UFO does come through. This is a really close one compared to our last map.
Yeah, it's very tight here at the front of the pack, and that can complicate things quite a bit in item mode, as you don't have just 2 players that are trying to, race and 2 support. It could get very messy, very complex. These item aces are going to have to make the right play calls here for their teams coming down the stretch.
Yeah. See, World is going to try to look for a knock on the speed, and now it's top 4 going to Kwangdong Freaks here at the end of our race, and really have to play defensively now and try to sweep away those members, but so much harder in item mode. It looks like Speed is going to sneak his way through here. Nice positioning there on the edge, avoids the water balloon, and a big turn of events here. Sensation now currently controlling top 4.
Yeah, Speed, Hojin, and Guard also have a nitrous and a magnet each.
It's going to be a magnet. It's going to be a magnet fest. It's going to be another one.
Absolutely, man.
Here we go.
Sensation has a ton of them. Finish line 200 meters away. Guard's going to try and connect right here, but he will not be able to close the distance there with World, as we're going to go to a deciding map number 5 here in item mode. World saving the day there for the Freaks, the only player to finish in the top 4 on that track.
Yeah, the timing of the Freaks using that Angel as well allows them to have some additional safety there for World. So he's able to just barely finish there despite the attempted magnet on his life. And that's how you could cycle as a defensive player at the back of item mode, is just constantly look for Angel, which is more likely to be found the lower your placement. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into initially getting that late item, 7th, 8th place item that you see Guard do at the start of these races, but also trying to cycle as quickly as possible on items to get that defensive one for your leader, as we saw there for the Freaks. And we're going to that decisive 5th.
Yeah, and I love that point you made talking about the strategy there, because, you watch Speed and you see somebody collide with a wall or, slow down or take a bad turn, and you think like, oh, okay, they messed up. Something is going wrong here. But then in item mode, no, there is a strategy. There is a play. You're trying to double down on items. You're trying to deny items from the opposing team here, as we see Sensation trying to make the play to come across the finish line there. They tried to use that final speed boost, but just did not give them enough. World by maybe 100th of a second, 200th of a second, able to secure that win there for the Freaks. And deciding map number 5 here coming out. If the Freaks win it, they will win this set 2-0.
Yeah, would be huge for them to take it 2-0. Be their second 2-0 in a row. But in order to do it, they're going to have to win this deciding match on Glacier Polar Halfpipe. Let's jump into it.
on the line here as we enter the last track of item mode between Sensation and the Kwangdong Freaks. If the Freaks win, it will win this set 2-0. If they lose, we are going to an ace match.
We're getting knocked back early. Now, this is one of the most chaotic item tracks because of the nature of it being a literal half-pipe, as its name suggests. So it's very easy to get knocked off the side, especially if you're trying to avoid water balloons. So avoiding water balloons on a narrow track like this, hard enough as it is, you've got to consider barricades, bananas, etc. And someone could actually physically collide with you using a nitro and knock you off the side if you're not careful. So you really have to play it slow. You can see there, the water balloon power is real on this map.
I love this analysis coming from you because it sounds so genuine and so heartfelt that I know this is coming from a place of pain.
Yeah, it is.
This is something that has been happening to you for months, I'm sure. I've never heard more clear and succinct, you know, description of all of the ways things can go wrong on any track.
You know, usually wisdom comes from a place of experience, right? And just trying to warn those racers who may encounter a similar fate. This is really important for Sensation to win, though. Kwangdong Freaks would take a massive lead in the standings. To go up 2-0 with a 4-0 in their series would be huge if they win this, so also equally massive for them.
Especially against Sensation, which is one of the more veteran teams here in this roster. And, you know, the Freaks, they have two chances. They have this track right here, but if they fail, they also have that ace match. So, you know, the pressure isn't too high on them, but for Sensation right now, it's really do or die. You do not want to go 1-2 in your first 3 total sets here in the KDL.
Cool here, playing very aggressively to avoid that water balloon. That was a great call coming from the team that they're actually looking for this. All 4 players there on the front line avoiding it together.
Well, two players there, one for the Freaks and one for Sensation, actually able to get onto the upper shortcut here as they had just enough speed to make that.
Well, this is going to be close, State. I mean, 500 meters to go here. Magnets on the final turn. The banana is out.
Yep, Nitrous are going to be coming in as well right now as Speed is in the head of the pack, but Spear trying to pass him. Sungmin, Hojun, and the Freaks are going to close it out with Sungmin by a hair, beating out both Hojun and Speed and securing the 2-0 win here for the Freaks.
2-0 after 2-0ing Rocks just last week puts them in a commanding lead in our standings here. And these are not easy opponents, as you mentioned, taking out Rocks in a very close series, but a more commanding lead in speed here against Sensation, a closer run in item mode, but taking this 2-0, going home early. Fans don't get to see an ace match, but if you're a Kwangdong Freaks fan, you're very happy with this result because this is going to be massive for going into the middle of the season. Having this much of a lead means your safety to get to the postseason it's not guaranteed, but you're in a very phenomenal spot.
Yeah, it couldn't be better here with 2 wins right out of the gate. And a lot of people were wondering how the Freaks would fare here against Sensation after, you know, a bit of a shaky performance in the opening weekend against a more rookie team in Rocks Esports. They went 3-2 in speed and 3-1 in item, which, yes, was a 2-0 win, but not as convincing as people thought seeing the Freaks roster. And so the Freaks, you know, securing yet another 2-0, they're going to be so happy about that.
Yeah. And it's, of course, really important to the win of a series is weighted most heavily, of course. Then it's how many of those individual modes have you won, and then it goes to track list. So it could be that if Kwangdong Freaks and Liiv SANDBOX keep going neck and neck, that those close matches could come back to bite Kwangdong. But in terms of what you've gained here, it is amazing. And for Sensation, bit of a rough one. They wanted to actually extend that first win into a winning streak, but it's not happening tonight.
No, it's not going to happen tonight. Hojun beat Hero on Wednesday in a heroic match, but Sensation getting a little bit of the wind swept out of their sails here the following weekend with this close defeat here to the Kwangdong Freaks.
Yeah, and I thought that we saw a pretty competitive series, all things considered. Sensation, despite the somewhat one-sided speed for Kwangdong Freaks, had some close runs. And I thought that if I had to give like an MVP for today, I think it would probably be Spear, because I think his ability to actually keep his front racers protected and made sure they were able to win those speed ones, which was ultimately the most important here for Kwangdong Freaks taking that first set. I think he was, in my eyes, the biggest standout. And it's not often that those are the players we praise. Usually praise the players who end up getting first place, like World, like Cool for Kwangdong Freaks. But I was really impressed with how he played, especially considering his individual league performance wasn't as strong last week. Coming up in a big way when he can focus on the team league.
Spear just played out of his mind today, and SangHyun also played very well. I mean, he was the deciding factor in a lot of those speed track wins, too. Just by a hair coming in to secure the 2-3-4 on, I think it was track number 3, if memory serves.
Yeah.
I'm probably wrong about that, but, you know, on at least one of those tracks, he secured that 2-3-4 win. And, you know, just a lot of good teamwork, you know. Item mode, a lot of people, they talk about the chaos of item mode, how unpredictable it can be. And while it is truly chaotic, there's a reason that the better team usually wins. And the FREECS able to secure the reverse sweep there. You know, I really thought Sensation was going to force that ace match after going up 2-0 in the first 2 tracks, but the FREECS just did not give up.
Yeah, they really didn't. I think that item mode is so bizarre to wrap your head around. As I've seen you mention it on the broadcast before, I'm also mostly a speed guy. I don't play as much item, but I have been recently since, you know, we decided we were going to commentate this, and I was like, well, item mode is got some depth, right? It feels like in terms of what you see with your eyes visually when you're watching, it's like, okay, well, some of these drifts we've seen, some of these hairpin turns, and the passes we saw, like Sungbin in the speed mode that we saw earlier on, you're like, wow, that's incredible. But the strategy that comes into item mode is harder to see with the naked eye, and you really have to be extremely vigilant watching the inventories of all the players. And you could see what was the coolest part of that item race to me was at the end when everyone avoided the water balloon. Like 4 or 5 players, like clockwork, all just moved to the left, way ahead of the water balloon colliding. That's how you could tell both teams are communicating with each other. Water balloon inbound, move to the left, or just get out of the center so you can avoid this one. And they all just perfectly, like, without any hint of slowing down, just naturally moved, like a magnet was pushing them. It's incredible stuff to watch.
Perhaps what's even more impressive about that here with these 2 teams is they don't have a dedicated item ace. You know, usually these teams, they roll with a 5th man on their squad who's going to swap in when the team goes to item mode. And one of the non-hybrid players will swap out so that they have the best possible chance of winning an item. Both these teams, they're 4-man rosters. They're that flexible. They're that good at both modes. And usually the item mode is also the IGL. He's the guy that's in the game that's calling out exactly what you said. You know, water balloon inbound, everybody go off to the left, go off to the right. You know, avoid the middle. Okay, let's pop the angel shield now. All right, who's in position with the magnet, with the nitrous? How are we going to win the final stretch?
Yeah.
That's that guy's role, but neither of these teams have that IGL. Instead, it's just pure communication coming out of them. They don't need that item ace. They're just able to make it work with a 4-man squad. And, I mean, it just goes to show the depth of both of these rosters.
Yeah, and the ability to have that sort of confidence going into what is a really competitive league here is pretty cool, too. And one thing that kind of stands out to me when you see these item, like if you guys have played for yourselves, which you should go download Kartrider Drift and play it, and you can all play at home wherever you're from. But when you play item mode, sometimes it could feel when you're learning the game a little bit frustrating, like things are out of your control. But when you see these top item mode players, and you could see them in the rankings, they are so incredibly consistent, and they've figured out how to defeat the randomness and the chaos. And you could see it in these plays. Even the set plays like rushing over to the items and stopping at basically the first 5 seconds of the track to make sure that you can try to use an AoE item, taking that risk in team mode is something that you might not be able to bring into your individual games when you're playing just queuing up because you don't have comms with those players. But if you're playing with your friends, you're playing with a squad, you know, you could definitely communicate those types of things. Some of the stuff we saw too, where, you know, it's something that I'd seen watching before commentating the first few days you guys were casting. Sometimes when you're in the lead, you'll actually kind of slow down and try to deny the person behind you the pickup of the item,
right? Which
creates this weird situation where 3 people slow down and are all just trying to make sure they get an item, because having an extra second or 2 is less valuable than potentially picking up a magnet, which could win you the entire thing.
Yeah, if you're further ahead, I mean, they're just going to use items to diminish that at some point, right? That's why oftentimes when we talk about heading into the second lap or the third lap, it's mostly just about posturing for that one final push. And it's why communication is so key between these teams. And it's why, like you said, item denial, item cycling. It's why we have players that'll hang all the way to the back of the pack, pick up items just to secure that win.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for our first series. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, our second series of the evening. Welcome back, KDL fans. It's time for our second series of the evening. Liiv SANDBOX versus ReBoot. We definitely have a bit of a David and Goliath story here going into our second matchup, as Liiv SANDBOX definitely one of the big favorites to take the whole tournament, but ReBoot bringing back some old talent, trying to challenge them here today.
Yeah, the OG Cosu teaming up with Looting, Ding, Loden, Pure here on the roster for ReBoot, going up, as you said, David against Goliath. It's the perfect analogy here because this Liiv SANDBOX team is stacked from top to bottom, not unlike the KWANGDONG FREECS. They're another one of those Titan teams that are at the top of the world right now.
Just such a dominant team, and you know that this team is, oh, I love these meme glasses that are going around. I've seen them in a few other esports as well. But you know this team is going into this tournament with a lot of expectations because they've won so many kart rider leagues, so many KLs, and since this org was founded, they've been a top team every single tournament they've competed in. And to start a new era in kart rider drift here in the preseason, they want to make sure they could take that first title too.
Yeah, on pretty much any team in the world, Neil would probably be the speed ace, but not on Liiv SANDBOX.
Yep.
That's how deep this roster is. And going up against them today, it's going to be ReBoot, who are about to start a very difficult stretch of their KDL preseason journey. Liiv SANDBOX, Sensation, and the FREECS are their three next opponents. So this is the beginning of a long and difficult road.
And there can be advantages to having the tough part of your season at the front end in a round-robin format. Means that the last part of your tournament, as you're playing your best, you can rack up a lot of wins that you might have not had earlier. So if you were going to lose to a team when your team is at its weakest in terms of synergy, it would be Liiv SANDBOX, right, as one of those teams you'd pick. Same with KWANGDONG FREECS. So this team is called ReBoot because they brought back Cosu, an old legend, and he just got out of the military service, a player who's played since 2012, so he has been around for a long time. And we'll see if they can compete with one of the biggest esports organizations in Korea here in Liiv SANDBOX. With Neil, the runner. Insu has been the speed ace for Liiv SANDBOX since 2019 when they were called SANDBOX and made a kart rider team for the KL. So he has just always been the leader of this team, a very funny guy, a very friendly guy. He came over and waved to us before the show. And this is the slogan of Liiv SANDBOX across all their esports: cool kids never panic.
Cool kids never
It's their hashtag,
panic.
like no joke. That's their hashtag. Look at all. I'm not kidding.
They say ReBoot's performance is neat, both aesthetically and entertainingly. And I can't tell if this is them being sarcastic. This is another quote from the trendy Korean TV show, The Glory.
Yeah.
I feel like it might be sarcastic.
It was explained to me like, why are you watching that boring thing over there, which is actually the Korean game Go, and it's like, well, it's just very interesting, entertainingly and aesthetically. like watching ReBoot try to come back and bring Cosu back into the scene. They're like, yeah, quite interesting. I feel like it's a slight diss, but a respectful diss.
Yeah, that's probably where the complexity lies and why I'm having a hard time really parsing this.
Looning, for me, by the way, has been one of the big underdogs of this tournament. I think one of the dark horses in individual. He has a lot of track records, actually, right now. And I think he's one of the key players for this team. A lot younger than Cosu and overshadowed by Cosu, I think, in this roster. But we'll see how he performs tonight.
SANDBOX, best of luck to Insu in his solo match win. So a little bit of manners coming out of here for ReBoot. Maybe showing respect to the OGs, the legends at Liiv SANDBOX. You know, ReBoot, they really have their work cut out for them here today. You know, their previous match, they lost 3-0 in speed mode against ROX Esports. And ROX Esports, they're no slouches, but they're up-and-comers. They're not established champions like Liiv SANDBOX.
Yeah. Liiv SANDBOX only dropped a single round of team speed against Sensation, which was the team they beat in their first round. Here's our draft for track list here. As you see, Boostwood and Rickety Rails banned here by SANDBOX, Barrows Pass and Winding Slopes banned by ReBoot. So we will actually get New York Rally, which is a very interesting track. It's very often banned. That's going to come through as our third map. So even if it is a 3-0, we'll see it, as well as that Zigzag Timberland we talked about earlier.
I'm telling you, man, Terracotta Twister and Zigzag Timberland are like two of the top 3 tracks, at least in my book. And look, Liiv, they agree with me. They pick both of them.
I'm more of a Gold Rush guy. I like Gold Gold Rush, simple. And I love when we see Gold Rush or Glacier as the first map because...
You just want to go downhill.
Yeah, I want, yeah, it's all downhill from here, right? But I like it when we start off on a simple map where we can see both teams' basic skills, and then we move into the more complexities later on. That's just my way of looking at things. But we do have a very versatile pool of tracks these teams can pull from. But seeing New York here, definitely going to be interesting, as it is very often banned.
Yeah, it's also a fan favorite. I have been asking, you know, some streamers what maps they prefer the most, what maps they prefer the least. You know, Cogwheel Crush, one of those maps that people are a little bit salty about sometimes when they get caught by the obstacles or they get knocked off a ledge by a cogwheel. But Mine Gold Rush, one of the best ones in the business, and that's going to be map number 1, as it looks like, well, our players are getting ready. Liiv SANDBOX versus ReBoot here on Mine Gold Rush.
And we're off here in our first track for Liiv SANDBOX versus ReBoot in our very first season of Kart Rider Drift.
Insu off to a nice start right there in the top 2, contesting that spot with Looning currently, as all these Razors going to try and take the tightest inner lines here, coming down on the descent of Mine Gold Rush, entering this nice long sweeping turn. We'll see if anyone's able to make some passes there on the inner line. Hyunsu with some nice body blocking.
Yeah, no surprise that Looning and Insu are at the front of the pack here. Very close, neck and neck right now. You can see Looning trying to create some collision, almost knocking Insu there into the wall. Would have given him a huge lead if he was successful, but he's not. Now Insu and Hyunsu threatening drafts.
Yeah, but look at this roster lineup right here for Liiv SANDBOX. 2nd, 3rd, and 4th position held firmly in their grasp as they're even contesting first here. Everyone trying to team up and catch up with Looning. Cosu, the Cavalry, going to try and come in and add some support, but you know, all the drafting here coming into this next downward slope as we start lap number 2. I'm liking Liiv SANDBOX position.
Yeah, 2, 3, 4 will be a guaranteed win if they can hold on to that. But if you get 1 and 2 as well, it's disastrous. So Looning really can't afford any mistakes up here. He is holding on firmly to first place, but there's no support for Cosu, who's trying so desperately to break into top 4. They need it so badly. Also, Load and Ding holding up 7th and 8th right now. Liiv SANDBOX with a massive lead here. And we're going into the last stretch of our 2nd lap right now. Something has to change.
And Neil taking some excellent lines, was in 5th place earlier in this race, now in top 2 along with Hyunsu, as ReBoot's going to need a miracle here coming into the last 500 meters of this track.
Looning dropping down to 2nd here. Cosu needs to pass Neil. Not going to happen.
Yep, that's it. 1-3-5-6 is going to be the win there for Liiv SANDBOX in convincing fashion, as it felt like, you know, right out of the gates with the exception of Looning, Liiv SANDBOX was just in control from start to finish.
Yeah, Neil also having a huge wraparound there. Looking like he just wanted to create disruption for most of the entirety of the first lap. And then in the second half of the 2nd lap, actually made his push and is able to get top 3 here. You could see, unfortunately for Load and Ding, really kind of being dead weight in this first round, not able to help out, whereas Neil maintaining that end spot to prevent anyone from passing and then making his run towards the end at the last possible moment. Looking like he was in control of the outside of top 3 pretty much in the entire time. Like, Neil is just like, no, I'm going, it's my time now, and no one could stop him. Crazy how well this roster works together, especially when you consider some of the language barriers coming through too with Neil on the team.
Yeah, Neil, a global player coming to Korea to fight in the KDL, in the Kart Rider League. And for good reason here is Liiv SANDBOX, one of the best teams in the world, looking to start off their KDL journey with a victory here. Map number 2, Terracotta Twister. And here we go here on Terracotta Twister. Neil taking a pretty brave line right there, pretty much body blocking everybody and getting a lot of momentum off of that with him and SangHyun in 1st and 2nd place here right out of the gates.
Yeah.
Look at this lead actually.
I mean, it's massive. And Looning is also struggling here. Now with a 3-1 here, really a 4-1 here in our top 5. There's not much that Looning is going to be able to do here to actually secure first place. He's just trying to aggressively use some good drafts here and follow Neil and SangHyun so they can actually maybe contest for the spot. But as soon as Hyunsu gets on top of him, that is going to get tougher and tougher. Credit where it's due, though. Looning is making this a tough control for Neil and SangHyun. In fact, presses it for a moment.
Looning, though, he collides against the wall, so he's going to go drop to the bottom of the pack, and SangHyun, Hyunsu going to fortify their position there in the top 2. Neil, I think, also might have had an unfortunate bounce there in that difficult intersection, but Liiv SANDBOX still in a commanding position. You see ReBoot trying to draft off of each other, try to close the distance here, try to get into a contesting spot with SangHyun and Hyunsu.
Let's see if Insu can also come up here and create some disruption, because right now, even though SangHyun and Hyunsu have the lead here, they are outnumbered, so one small mistake here, and it could be overtaken here. It's still a close race, as we are in the second lap here. And so far, holding on to this, someone has to pass, or this is just going to be a 1-2 finish here, and Liiv SANDBOX taking match point. Here goes Ding.
Yep, Ding's gonna make a pass right now, holding that second position, Load right behind him as these 4 racers are gonna try and navigate this treacherous part of Terracotta Twister carefully here. Everyone taking a nice conservative line. Nobody falling in, nobody crashing into any walls there as we're gonna progress here into the last 600 meters of this track.
Cosu just not able to break through. He's still at number 6, so Liiv SANDBOX with a tiny lead right now, and it's going to be enough.
It will be enough. Neil finishing there in 8th place, but it doesn't matter as they have the 1-4-5 spot, delivering the win, 20-19. A close win, but yet another victory here for the favorites.
Yeah, I think it was really well showcased, the amount of control that Liiv SANDBOX had of top 4 throughout the entire race, but I think one of the things that wasn't shown was Insu's control of Cosu there in preventing him from actually getting that 5th place, because that was all it would have taken for this to actually go the way of ReBoot, because it was a very close race in terms of those positions there. But Cosu, you could see how close he is to Insu actually in terms of time. Not that far behind. If one slip up from Insu there as he's trying to defend them, and this race could have actually gone the other way.
The perfect analysis right there. I mean, you drop one more rank and suddenly your edge is gone. You are the loser and we would be tied going into track number 3, but instead Liiv SANDBOX is going to be coming here on match point as we get a bit of a recap of what happened here. So Looning spanned out, and I didn't see exactly what happened to Neil, but he goes all the way to the 8th, so you got to think that perhaps he took that turn too tight or he got bumped and he fell off the track.
It looked like Neil may have been trying to create that collision, and then he tried to go for a spin recovery. You know, you could spin, drift your way out of that one, but he fails it, and then he falls behind, unfortunately. We're moving into World Tour New York Rally, though, for our next track.
Liiv SANDBOX looking to get another win. One more track win will give them the speed win here in this match as we're on the one-lapper World Tour New York Rally.
Cosu in the lead right now, but it's a very contested top 3 at this moment in time. Don't want to call things too early here in terms of control, but Cosu's still holding on to it right now. It is very difficult in the early part of this lap to actually pass. Going to get a little bit easier here as we move to the later parts. There's a lot of drift angles.
And some nice body blocking there by Low. Going to try and slow down the mid-packers there for LSB as ReBoot's really gunning for that top 2 spot, but SangHyun right on their tails, as is Insu, and second later, and Liiv SANDBOX is taking the top 3 out of 4 spots.
Off the booster here, Hyunsu still holding control. Right now, Looning needs to pass Insu here, or this is going to be problematic here for ReBoot. Once again, Insu holding the end of the pack here, knows how he's pushing Looning back right now, making it very difficult for him to actually break through. If he's unsuccessful, the SANDBOX are going to take this. It's a one-lap race here in New York.
Yep, this zoning by the Liiv SANDBOX players is just so solid, fortifying Hyunsu and SangHyun's position there in 1-2. And if Looning is able to shake things up a little bit, the math becomes a little bit dicey here, as Looning actually taking fantastic inner lines, one after another. Oh, but the collision, he's gonna drop to the pack.
That's it, probably. It's just so difficult to come back from this now. trying his best, but it's just not going to be enough.
Nope, Liiv SANDBOX with a 1-2 finish, and they didn't even need that. Also taking on positions number 4 and 5 in a commanding 3-0 sweep here in the squad speed mode. Is going to have them taking the first portion of this best of 3.
There were questions about Liiv SANDBOX moving into KartRider Drift with the skill set transition into a new game, as it's almost a 1-to-1 between KartRider and KartRider Drift, but it's not quite. But Liiv SANDBOX have already showcased in their first 2 series, first and a half, let's say, that these guys are the real deal. And Insu, the captain of this team, the speed ace, coming up big, this time playing a different role, right? And these 3 speed races playing in the middle of the pack incredibly well. And credit to Looning, though. I mean, he made it closer, and he took some extremely heavy risks there, which ultimately didn't pay off because he was blocked, and then that collision spelled the end for ReBoot. But he tried his best, and I think his heroics should be noted.
Yeah, Looning really had the best fight there out from ReBoot. I gotta say, I felt like every single track he was up there contesting, you know, position 1, position 2, position 3. He was their lead runner, keeping them in contention on some of those tracks. And you know, that final race in New York, I liked their position out of the gate for a long time. ReBoot, they were in a commanding spot. They had dominated the midfield, but the mechanics, the raw mechanics out of Liiv SANDBOX, not only taking inner lines, but also body blocking, drafting off of each other, supporting the team, having those key communications, led by their speed ace, Insu, delivers the clean 3-0 sweep. As we're gonna have a racer change here. Jimin coming in, Neil out. Yep, Neil not in the item racer. Jimin is the item ace on this team.
Exactly. We also had Load coming through on the other side for ReBoot, so pure out, Load in. So we will have the item aces coming through. Load, it feels like such a great name for a player who's going to come in for items. He's carrying the load. He's got the items he's cycling through. And a player who I think is really going to have to show up big here if this series is going to turn around as we take a look at our drafts.
Yeah, ReBoot, they desperately need an item win here to force that ace match against Liiv SANDBOX. And yeah, we have the item track list. Istanbul, Sunset Plaza, and Icebreaker Pass are the bans here for Liiv SANDBOX out of the gate. Magma Cavern and Pharaoh's Pass, the bans for ReBoot. So we'll be going to Mushroom Caves, Gangnam Streets, World Tour, London Night, Brody's Gloom, and Motherlode. No Cogwheel Crush this time.
We'll see if Liiv SANDBOX gets stumped here by ReBoot when we go into the item mode, but in terms of the raw racing mechanics we saw, just straight up, they look to be the stronger team, as we expected, but maybe item mode could be what shakes it up here, as Liiv SANDBOX have only played 1 series, but they did go 3-0 in that match against Sensation in the item mode, so no weak points, so to speak. Let's see if ReBoot can actually change the narrative here as we move into Forest Mushroom Caves for our first round.
All right, and here we go as item mode is started. Everybody's favorite mode here in KartRider Drift, pure unadulterated chaos. Who will control it best? Will it be Liiv SANDBOX? Will they be able to secure that sweep? Or will ReBoot be able to force an ace match with some cunning and clever plays?
That is the question we're going to answer right now, as Insu in the lead, had double shield here, is eventually going to get wiped back by this UFO, but had some defensive setups there. That's the UFO. It's going to break through your shields regardless.
Yeah, unless you have an EMP, that UFO is gonna slow you down quite a bit. But, you know, as we've said time and time again, these things, they don't matter too much here in the early game. These players are just gonna be cycling items the best they can and just really try to set up the best possible posturing that they can have for that final push, because as opposed to speed mode where every position matters, you might have a 1-2 win, you might have a 2-3-4 win, a 1-3-5 win. In item mode, the first racer that crosses the finish line, their team wins. And that's why you see these teams, they sacrifice players to the bottom of the pack. That's why you see Insu right now in 8th place. It's not because he's the slowest racer, it's because he's trying to support the rest of his teammates. They're trying to whip out that wombo combo for that final moment in lap number 2.
Yeah, Insu holding on to 2 magnets right now. We'll probably have to use one very soon, but we'll hold the final one for the last moment. Barricade actually getting some value. That's pretty rare.
Yeah. Ding actually catching that barricade is going to give Insu room to pass, and then he gets abducted by a UFO. Sorry, Insu.
Well, that's the value of having 2 players in the lead like that, is that Banana does come through here as well, but a second UFO is going to pull Jimin back. Hyunsu holding on to that boost and the magnet. 500 meters to go.
500 meters to go. Pure has one more nitrous in the bank, but Hyunsu with both the nitrous and the magnet, will he be able to pass? And he will, just by a hair there. Hyunsu's going to deliver the win. Nitrous and magnets, a lot of speed right there out of the gate, and Looning not able to create enough distance to get that win there for ReBoot as Liiv SANDBOX continues their domination. 4 map wins in a row, now up 1-0 in item mode.
Yeah, Jimin having a really nice lead for Liiv SANDBOX the entire time too, constantly having first place and pulling a lot of the aggro on those UFOs. And you know, EMP is an item that you could sometimes tech in if you're ahead, but it's so rare to find that it's very difficult to use. So a lot of UFOs catching Liiv SANDBOX off guard, but because they kept cycling those players back into first place, they're able to take the win in the end. Very close, as you mentioned, and a lot of items kind of being spammed at the last possible second to pull through. But I thought their early game was quite nice as well.
Yeah, they had a fantastic job, you know, setting up for that mid game, setting up for that final push, and that's what matters here in item mode. It's why we swap into item aces, as we'll see what they have in store for us here on World Tour Gangnam Streets.
Off we go on the streets of Gangnam here, the Kart Rider Drift, and I love this map just because it's kind of pure, unadulterated item craziness, because there's not a lot of crazy turns, there's not a lot of obstacles, it's just about your item usage and how you can hold on to control, because it's a very wide track, so avoiding things like water bombs can actually be pretty easy. You also don't have to really worry about your turns that much or being knocked off the track. That's not a thing. It's just really about strategy.
Yep, pure strategy here as you get more players caught by water balloons. Hyunsu right now in the lead here for Liiv SANDBOX, but you know, this is a 3-lapper. There is a lot of track left to be played.
Ooh, Pure!
Yeah, he's getting caught there on the ledge, and you know, in speed mode, obviously, like, that's a blunder, right? 9 times out of 10, but in item mode, you know, I have like 2 or 3 brain cells on a good day. I'm not gonna try. I'm not gonna try and be like, okay, Pure, you're messing up right now, man. Because maybe it's like a 5-head play. And he's like, okay, I'm just gonna slow down, get to the bottom of the pack, try and support my team from that position. Focus on what items we have. Focus on the play calling.
If you do unintentionally fall to the back, and he is the item ace, I was just speaking earlier about load, it's actually Pure, but if you do fall to the back, now you're the guy who's setting up those long-range items where you can actually make a huge impact play. You still have a role to play here. Now he's back up in first. I mean, it's just how it goes.
Item mode in a nutshell right there. This guy's just hugging a wall for 5 seconds plus, and a moment later he's in first.
And that's the beauty of item mode, man. All that matters is who crosses the finish line first. It doesn't matter what happens in between. As right now, speaking of the in-between, SangHyun is in first, but there are a lot of people gunning for him. Can he hold on to the position? He has 2 magnets, but I don't think he's going to be able to keep them for very long. I say that.
Yeah, we actually have 6 racers all here on the mini-map, so it's a very crowded field here coming into the final lap. On the Gangnam Streets, Looning right now in the lead. He does have the Angel Shield and the Nitrous.
They have a few stacked, actually. Jimin is holding on to 2 right now, so it's very difficult to actually attack Liiv SANDBOX right now as we reach this final stretch here with 2 magnets, 2 boosts. Looning, you're going to have to give it your best shot.
I'm liking the item roster for both of these teams, though, as we're approaching the finish line. ReBoot, Ding, and Cosu both in the lead. 300 meters out, Wolf.
Okay, Hyunsu trying to push for this.
Is he going to be able to get it? No, it's SangHyun who's going to deliver track number 2. Another victory here for Liiv SANDBOX. As, you know, it felt like here in Gangnam Streets heading down the final stretch, everybody had every possible item they could ever need. There were Nitrous, there were Angel Shields, there were Magnets. And SangHyun just getting the better end of the trade right there with his item usage, leading the pack and securing that win. And we might have a 6-0.
Yeah, we might just straight up. Crazy how close it came down to being, but SangHyun just having a slight edge there. And we were trading Angels, we were trading Magnets, but SangHyun, it looks like the way that Liiv SANDBOX had it set up, they were staggered so that he was going to be able to come in on the right side, or otherwise Insu on the left there. There's a lot of different win conditions set up there. It's hard in those final moments to really micro-analyze because there's so much happening at once. It's only so much we could see on our screens, but it looked like all according to plan. Sighs of relief there on the Liiv SANDBOX player's face, as well as it did come down to a final stretch moment, as this could be the last track here of our team matches tonight. World Tour London night. Can we see a reverse sweep from ReBoot? Let's find out.
Match point here for Liiv SANDBOX, not just for the item set, but for this set in general. As they swept the sweep, they swept the speed mode. Can they sweep the item mode? Just inventing a tongue twister on the fly here, man.
It's all good.
The item mode, it's getting to me.
It's intense, as Furo has a really nice block there, actually, on that missile. It's actually gonna allow Insu to get first here. They might have a UFO angle. Actually, no, they don't have one. 2 EMPs at the ready, but not on the players that are going to be useful for it.
And Liiv SANDBOX, Cosu will get abducted there very briefly. I love the animations here in Kart Rider Drift. They're just so adorable, you know, getting abducted by the UFO. Your rider just kind of pops out of the cart there for a moment, falls right back in place.
Yeah, really nice positioning here from our top 3. Ding as well, avoiding that water balloon there. It has a pretty big radius, so does avoid that here. But unfortunately for him, Insu and Hyunsu both have such control right now over the second lap that it's difficult to pass. He's even going to commit the magnet here now, holding on to 2 boosts.
Yeah, Looning just kind of cycling all of these speed boosts as he keeps coming across more and more items, using both a nitrous and a magnet there that will propel him into first place for now, but Hyunsu not going to allow that to go uncontested as our racers are heading into lap number 3 here. London Night, excuse me, I'm all frazzled from that opening, man.
No, it's all good. And look, an Angel is held here now. 2, in fact, across the board. 3 now. I'm like, just keep stacking up.
It's like
and
this count from Sesame Street.
3 Angels! But of course, 2 of those right now in the hands of Liiv SANDBOX, so it can be used AoE across the teams. Doesn't matter what position you're in. Sunga wants to use his first, probably, so that he can hold on to something like a magnet here. But Jimin is now in first.
Yeah, 300 meters left to go. Pura is getting slowed down there by the magnet, and Hyunsu is going to complete the sweep here for Liiv SANDBOX, as it just feels like they are on another level here, coming in against ReBoot. 6-0 will be the map score, 3-0 in speed mode, 3-0 in item mode, as no one can stop them right now.
No one can stop them, and they had 2 Angels, and then the UFO comes through, but it's just a second too late. If that UFO comes a second or 2 faster, I think ReBoot takes this one and we're moving to a 4th round, but unfortunately he's able to sneak through. The UFO goes off after he's crossed the finish line. And what a dominant performance here from Liiv SANDBOX. And when we were looking at Jimin, who ends up finishing 7th here, he was in first about half a second before that ended. You could just see how insanely close this is here for Liiv SANDBOX. Thumbs up coming over from Neil as he rejoins his squad to pack up, because this is the end. Makes you wonder if his stuff was there. Was he maybe going to be the ace player if it did go to 3?
Perhaps. I have heard rumors that one of our teams during the ace matches actually decided their final player by Rochambeau. They were so confident they were going to take it no matter whoever entered the field. But no ace matches here today.
Nope.
As I'm starting to think that perhaps I am cursed, as the three I've casted what now? 3 out of the 4 days here at the KDL, and those are the 3 days where we did not have ace matches.
Well, you cast 2 Liiv SANDBOX series, didn't you?
True.
I mean, that's going to put your chances low.
True.
As not only will they take that 2-0, but they will take a +6 here in terms of tracks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the only team that's close to them right now is KWANGDONG FREECS, of course, the 2 teams that are in the lead here in our standings. But Liiv SANDBOX having a more dominant performance in their 2-0 puts them at a pretty significant advantage. And this is what we expected going into this tournament, a team of veterans who are just so at the peak of their game at the end of KL, moving into KDL. Those same skills, will they translate, was the question. And so far, the answer has been a very resounding yes.
Yeah, if you were to make a power ranking right now for all the top teams, at least for me, I would say Liiv SANDBOX, the KWANGDONG FREECS, and Sensation. And Liiv SANDBOX, they already dispatched Sensation in a convincing fashion in week number 1, and they just continue their role here. In week number 2, I mean, 6-0, it does not get better than that. And in speed mode, item mode, it didn't matter how things shaked up. they were just in dominating fashion. It felt every single track.
Yeah. And, I mean, a lot of those item races came down to a very close finish, but look at the difference here in tracks, or rounds to be more precise. 5 ahead. So that's the difference here in the dominance we've seen from Liiv SANDBOX versus KWANGDONG FREECS, is that additional +5. You see, you know, even Aura is kind of hot on the heels in terms of KWANGDONG FREECS. If KWANGDONG drops just one and Aura wins one, they should be able to pass them. But for Liiv SANDBOX, you need to do a lot more than that if you're Aura. And I'm not trying to call it early, because there's still a lot more Kart Rider to play here. But Liiv SANDBOX have already taken out 2 of the toughest opponents here. You know, ReBoot being one of the dark horses in this tournament, but also taking out Sensation early on. It hasn't been an easy schedule for them either. Looking this dominant this early, we definitely have a clear favorite.
I can't wait to see them face off against the KWANGDONG FREECS. That's the match that I'm most looking forward to. Hoping that I'm casting that day. But Liiv SANDBOX just in dominating fashion. I mean, their map differential right now, I think, is greater than any other 2 teams combined with +11.
Yeah, that's crazy if you even like push it out that far.
It's just absurd, the skill that this team has from top to bottom, and they're not a 4-man roster either. They have that item ace too, so they have depth, they have flexibility. I mean, if you're swapping out Neil, I mean, I know Neil, he's a speed player, he's not so much an item player, but if you're swapping him out in any case, I mean, any other team in the world would be happy to have Neil play for them in item mode, but Liiv SANDBOX, they're just so confident that they're like, okay, yeah, Neil, you're out. We're going to swap in our item ace. He's going to IGL this. Then we're going to sweep item mode as well.
And when you consider,
it's amazing.
You consider Liiv SANDBOX has been around for a long time, and Insu is one of the only players that is really challenging for like the new blood Emperor, right? He's one of the players that's been so successful, so you could say early on in his career. That he's kind of challenging for that top spot, and maybe in a few years' time he will go up to those 14 titles and actually challenge the Emperor. But at this moment in time, you know, he's been with this org for so long that he even gets the spot over Neil as the speed ace. And that's wild to me, you know, coming into Kart Rider, but taking a closer look at Insu's history, like, well, deserved, right? He's been with this org since it was founded, and Liiv SANDBOX is a team that has success outside of Kart Rider and other esports as well. It's a well-funded organization, and the rich do sometimes get richer, you know, in tournaments like this where you have some of the best talent, you have a team that's stuck together for a long time, you have the same leader at the helm, you bring in new blood in this global player, Neil, and it's just a recipe for success right now. And Liiv SANDBOX are definitely, I think, churning out win after win in dominant fashion, and you consider that some of their weaker opponents, you know, are still down the pipeline here. We might even see like a perfect season from this team. They might go undefeated. I mean, like I said, it's a bit early to call, but it's not unrealistic to expect at this point.
I hadn't even considered that we might see something like that, but you're absolutely right. I mean, taking down Sensation already, I feel like the only team that has a chance of taking them down is the FREECS if they keep up this level of play. But, you know, we are still very new here in the KDL. All these teams are getting better all the time, every single day. They are training, they're improving. Keep in mind, this is, you know, a franchise that's been around for 2 decades, but Kart Rider Drift, it's a new game.
Yeah.
People are still just consistently getting better. You see it online in streamers. You see it with these players practicing 4, 5, 6, sometimes even 8 hours a day. And, you know, who's going to put in the work? Who's going to be the one that's going to try and close the distance between them and these top guns here on Liiv SANDBOX? We might have another team before the end of this preseason come up to contest them.
Yeah, and considering how global Kart Rider Drift is aiming to be, when you consider the accessibility of this game that can be played on consoles, on PC, on mobile as well, around the world, Kart Rider was always a very Korea-specific game that you could play overseas, but it wasn't that convenient. It was kind of difficult to get into. It wasn't always in English, right? But now with Kart Rider Drift, like, the scene is growing and it's more accessible to anyone. You don't have to have a PC. You could play on the train. You know, you could play in the taxi on your way to work. So I think that the growth of this esport is definitely in the pipeline. I think we are definitely going to be seeing players like Neil continue to be famous for years to come. And it's exciting to see that this is just the first chapter, and this team is already living up to expectations, arguably higher than expectations. But that is going to do it for our team matches for today. After this short break, we are going to go to our solo individual competition, Group C, after 7 minutes of time. Welcome back to Kart Rider Drift League. We're in our preseason here. It's 2023. It's a new Kart Rider. It's a new Kart Rider season. My name is Wolf. I'm with State. We had 2 matches today already in terms of teams, but we're now moving into the individual competition, the solo match.
Yep, Group C here in the round of 32. 8-player group, solo speed. Top 4 will move on to the round of 16. Top 4 will be eliminated from the solo speed section of this tournament. And, it's a little bit more of a mixed bag here today as opposed to, the opening weekend. Opening weekend, we had a lot of headliners. We had some stacked groups, but here we have some rookies, we have some veterans, and we have some players that, although they don't have a lot of experience of success in the original Kart Rider, there are a lot of people talking about in the community them having potential.
Oh, absolutely. Especially Chorong and Han, 2 players who weren't able to participate due to getting COVID-19 after qualifying last year, but now are here making their debut in Group C. So a lot of Korean fans have been waiting for these 2 players. They've been very good for a very long time in terms of the rankings, but now have actually qualified. You could see that if you look at Groups A and B, no huge surprises here in terms of who advanced. Players like Cool, Insu, Hyunsu, they all made it through. Looning was one of my dark horses for the tournament, does make it through. Neil, obviously advancing.
Yeah, Hojin probably the biggest upset. A lot of people were kind of sad about that. The Emperor returning and then being eliminated, but Group B, that's still a stacked roster. Neil, Knock, Perfect, and Sunbin all moving on to the round of 16 as Hojin, he took a long hiatus after Kart Rider to come back to Kart Rider Drift. It's a big ordeal. But here in solo Group C, got World, Cosu, Chorong, Han, Summer, Yoon, and Banana, in addition to SangHyun. All these players going to try their best to qualify here for the round of 16. Only 4 will advance as DogWorld, excuse me.
It's
I
all
always
right.
get hung up by that.
It's all right. It's a dog eat the dog part of DogWorld name out there. Someone could lose the first part of their ID.
Yeah.
But yeah, he said he wants to actually finish today with a perfect record, win first every time. Extremely rare in competitive Kart Rider. As Cosu is back, the most important thing is an unbreakable age. Born in 1995, I believe, one of our oldest players here, did just return from the military, took a 3-year hiatus, is back now to compete for Kart Rider Drift.
That's his first individual tournament in 900 plus days when he took a top 8 spot in Season 2. Is Chorong, one of the players that you mentioned earlier, qualified for the Kart Rider League last year but was not able to make it because of COVID concerns. He's going to try and make his debut now. Now is his chance.
Yeah. And likewise, Han will be facing his first challenge as well. He's like, who is this? Who is this guy? Who's the guy we're seeing for the first time? It was his first time playing on stage. There were a lot of jokes online when he wasn't able to participate. It's like, is this guy even real? Like, who is this guy? He's made it in now and gets his first chance here. As Banana will also be playing this evening. One of the top players that we'll talk about in terms of item ace later. Summer. Another player here qualifying. We'll see how he performs. A teamless player. And he has the mindset he's going to advance no matter what.
Yeah, one of the younger players here in the KDL, born in 2007. A lot of players are saying that he has a ton of potential here in the Kart Rider Drift League, even potential to reach the round of 16 as Yoon. Now, Yoon especially impressed me there on Wednesday with his swiping, a critical part of Finale's success and their match there on Wednesday. Of course, Peter and Troba delivering the cast then. He's Finale's item ace, and I'm excited to see him race here in solo speed, considering he didn't even race in speed on Wednesday.
Yeah. And here's Banana. He's the item ace, of course, for Finale, as well as, this is a player who is very funny, and he says if he wins, he's going to do like a banana reaction, otherwise known as a ceremony.
Ceremony.
And even though he's considered one of the better item players, he is a fantastic speed racer as well, qualifying for this. And SangHyun, who's our last player in this group, everyone else wants to win. I just want the YouTube frag movie scenes. He wants a mad movie. And this guy is such a funny player. He's been in Kart Rider for a long time. I went back and watched some of his older appearances. There's so many meme highlight reels of this guy on camera. He's keeping it light today in terms of his appearance on camera. He's like, just keep it a little light. Yeah.
But I'm excited to see Banana. That guy's very exciting. As you said, Finale's item ace. Didn't even race in speed on Wednesday. And You know, I want to see a banana-based ceremony coming out of him. You know, it's been too long since I've seen a ceremony at Live Korean Esports. I can't even remember when it last was. It must have been some ancient StarCraft league from a time long before now.
You see it every now and then, you know, in leagues like the LCK, but Cartrider, it used to be a staple. I'm hoping either Banana or SangHyun is going to do something for us tonight. As our first round is going to be on Mine Gold Rush. First to 50 here, top 4 players advance to the round of 16. Let's jump into Gold Rush. And we're off. This begins Group C here of the KDL Preseason.
Yep, everybody coming down hot on the descent here at Mine Gold Rush. World in first place. Commanding position here as he looks to deliver on his promise to deliver a perfect solo speed here today. Summer contesting him there in the top spot as well as Chorong. Everyone taking these tight lines. Loving that line actually there from Cosu, gaining a lot of ground here on the top 3.
Yeah, DogWorld actually losing a little bit of control here over first. We'll have a draft here onto Chorong. Summer with a collision into him though. He's still looking to hold this very tight inner line.
Not getting pushed a little bit there by SangHyun to an outer line there, but World able to cut right back to it as he's going to try his best to catch up to Chorong, Cosu, and Yoon, who are rounding up the top 3. Getting ready to go into lap number 2.
Yeah, exiting that vortex can sometimes create a lot of collision because everyone gets stacked up here, but all players actually handling it very well as Chorong has maintained this first place spot for a really long time, even with a lot of inner turns attempted. With some really nice drifting here, and also drafts constantly hitting him, but he's maintaining that lead. Snaking very well here, maintaining the nitros to make sure he doesn't get past. I say that though, now Cosu has finally overtaken him.
Yeah, it's neck and neck there at the top 2 spots as Cosu with the inner line is going to be able to eventually pass Chorong, but it's such a tight race here in the middle of the pack. Only a fraction of a second separating first from, I want to say, 7th, possibly even 8th place, as anyone could really win this race here in the ending stretch.
Chorong still holding on to this. He's playing so well right now, and he's got such a massive lead. With all the collisions behind him, everyone else is just defending for him, it almost feels like here. As can he hold on to this? Summer's gonna pass him.
Yeah, 100 meters left to go as Summer's gonna be able to deliver the top 1 spot right there. The young star, the rising star, delivering a first place finish with Chorong, Cosu, and World following behind him, rounding out the top 4. And if you're Summer here, trying to make a big impression and make your move on to the round of 16, you're going to be very satisfied with that opening performance here in the solo speed portion of today's event.
Yeah, Chorong and Cosu bringing up 2nd and 3rd here, so you can see the distance very, very slight. The advantage that Summer has is he took a boost path and angled and just pushed past him 50 drifts.
Ton of drifts there coming out of Summer as he was probably doing a big effort to combine those long and short drifts as best he possibly could.
SangHyun dropping to 8th will start off this series with a -1 scoreline. One of our veterans here has no titles, but looking to make a big comeback here in Cartrider Drift. Bit of an unfortunate start to him. We're moving on to our second track now, State. See if he can bring it back as we move into World Tour Terracotta Twist.
Track number 2 here in Group C starts now. So everyone's doing their best to build up this nitrous coming into the first couple of turns. World with a lot of speed, a lot of momentum is going to propel him from 5th place almost into first, trying to catch up here with Cosu. We're getting ready to go into the latter sections of this track. World, I love that our observer is following him because he's holding a ton of tight lines. Of course, one of the favorites to advance from this group. We'll see what he's able to bring out here as we're getting ready to come into the inner portion.
This is where things get a little bit trickier, as Chorong's actually going to cut across here and take a slightly slower, or rather slightly shorter drift, but actually it's going to give him just enough edge to get through some collisions here in the narrow part of this map. Oh, this is so disastrous. If you fall off here, your chances of getting top 3 are so severely diminished.
And multiple players there had some hiccups coming into those turns, just a little bit too congested here at the top of the pack as World and SangHyun gonna fall to 7th and 8th place, and now it's Chorong, Cosu, Summer, and Yoon looking to fight here for the top 4 spots.
Yeah, holding it pretty comfortably right now, Chorong, and this was very similar to what we saw in the previous track. Let's see if he can actually hold on to it this time. We did see Summer cut through at the last possible second to gain control, as now we're going to go into this big turn here. This is where you see a lot of passes happen. Cosu
with a fortuitous bump right there is going to be able to take first place for now as we're coming into a couple more tight turns here, heading back into the intersection. Keep in mind, this was the position where a lot of racers, they ran into some trouble here on lap number 1. Will everyone be able to navigate this successfully here in lap number 2? Some big collisions coming out, a lot of momentum lost.
Oh, Cosu with a very hard turn there and actually maintains control. He's built such a huge gap right now. Chorong's trying to go over here and draft on him, but the gap is so great right now. 500 meters to go. Can Chorong find the angle?
Looks like he's going to try and draft his way into a win here, but Kosu's holding on by a thread. Photo finish there as Kosu's going to win track number 2. World and Yoon getting tied there for 3rd place behind him, and then Summer in 5th place.
Unfortunately for SangHyun and Banana, rotating down to the bottom again here, so really just not building up the points they need so desperately. And while we always like to track who's in first place and who is winning, at the end of the day, the top 4 will advance and the bottom 4 will not. Notice SangHyun in 7th here, Banana also losing a point here after a rocky start himself. You can see the total standings here. Banana, Han, SangHyun, it's looking very difficult for them. They're not out of it by any means, but we need to see some better finishes for these players, or their chances may be over before we really reach the halfway point here in Group C.
Right, we're about a third of the way through this right now. Keep in mind, we are racing until 50 points. The first racer to reach that 50-point threshold will end the race. The points will fall where they may after that final track, and of course, only the top 4 advancing right now. 4th and 5th place, it is quite close. I think it was about 3 points perhaps that were separating the pack right there, but as you said, the bottom 3 players, they're gonna need to start coming up with some big performance here, Wolf, as we're getting ready to go to Desert Ancient Aqueducts here for track number 3. And our racers are off. We'll see who's going to be able to get the most fortuitous bumps here, as it seems to be Chorong yet again.
And this is one of the least forgiving tracks in Kart Rider Drift because there are so many 90-degree turns, and then we get to this portion here, you actually have to chain your drifts together through these tunnels, which is incredibly difficult to do. You have to turn multiple times, and then this one right here where you chain it through 2 tunnels is very difficult to pull off. If for pro players, very simple, but still one small mistake could mean the difference of actually advancing or not. Is Chorong, once again, incredible performance in the first lap here of Aqueducts.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the most difficult tracks that we have here in this tournament, not just because of those tight turns, as you mentioned, that you need to navigate perfectly, but look at how narrow these sections are here. World going to use that to his advantage and try and take some really sharp lines to cut across Yoon, but Yoon getting that first place back and then delivering some nice body blocking of his own as top 3 highly contested.
Yeah, DogWorld just trying to make sure that he does not get pushed into the wall there while also trying to pull away from draft range there. Unfortunately unsuccessful as Yoon is caught on his tail right now.
Yep, World still maintaining that first place lead. Han having a bit of a better showing right now here in the top 3 as we enter lap number 2. Some more difficult drifts coming in. Right now it's not too congested, so these players are able to navigate that part of this map safely here. Not too many collisions, not too much momentum lost as World and Yoon continuing to fight for the top 1 spot.
Really greedy drift there from DogWorld, but it's going to pay off actually maintaining that lead right now, just trying to push himself ever so further away from Yoon, who's just barely out of draft range. Now pulling through, we're very close to the end.
Yep, Yoon taking some tight lines right here. He's gaining on World, but World is doing his best to body block him with 300 meters left to go. Will World be able to secure this lead? It's really tight here, and Yoon barely cuts into the front, and he's gonna take first place here.
Incredible performance here, and he's able to take it, and he was fighting tooth and nail that entire time. Gives a wave to the camera, as you know you're gonna be on camera when you are the leader, choosing the next track as well. Yoon What a great performance there. And World as well, blocking him several times. And that was a really competitive mini 1v1 we had there at the top of the standing. So massive plays there. It's not going to be enough from World to actually hold him off here, and we'll drop down to second. First place is so coveted because it means that you get 10 points rather than the 7, so a huge jump up here. Kosu's consistent performances, though, across all the tracks will actually have him at first here. And you see for SangHyun, Banana, and Han, the players who've been struggling the most, still looking rough. It's not impossible by any means, but you are now on a bit of a time limit to get into some of these top 3 finishes, or your chances of moving on to this tournament are going to diminish.
We're going to need to see some of those players at the bottom of the standings, frankly, deliver a win if they're going to come back in this one, because time is running out. It's only a couple tracks left to be played here, Wolf, as we're getting ready to go to Glacier Extreme Stadium.
Here we go. And already Chorong pulling ahead here.
Every time.
Every single time. And he and Cosu have just been so consistent. And that's what you really want in solo. Winning is nice. You get track selection. You're going to get those 10 points. But if you get top 3 every time, that is how you're going to guarantee you're advancing, and maybe in first place as well. So Banana will actually have his best start here of this group so far, pulling ahead.
I'm really liking this start here for Banana. We'll see if he's able to hold on to a top 3 spot as we get into some of the more technical turns here. And no, actually falling down to 4th place for a moment there was Banana here for entering the hairpin turns on Glacier Extreme Stadium. Will he be able to pass Chorong? Going to take some tight lines. Keep in mind, Banana, the item ace for Finale Esports. It's going to be tough for him to try and contest with some of the best speed racers in the world, but for now he's doing it here.
Yeah, he really is. Great hairpin turn from all 3 of these players here in summer. Also very successful here in the early parts of this. Our first track winner is keeping it very competitive. As Banana on fortunate collision here, not unrecoverable, actually gets bumped right afterwards from behind, but he's going to drop down quite significantly, and that's not acceptable when you consider you're only at 1 point right now. And you know, if you're doing much better in individuals, you'd be like, okay, dropping to 5th, not the end of the world, but dropping now to 6th with only 1 point, a disastrous scenario.
Yeah, really one of the worst case scenarios there for Banana, as World also took that turn a little bit too tight. It's going to get him possibly in a bit of trouble here, as the pack behind Chorong is so congested entering the hairpin turns here on the final lap.
Chorong's like, thank you very much for being my blockers. And now he's actually going to take these hairpin turns without being contested whatsoever. 500 meters to go. No one's anywhere near this guy.
Yeah, it's a race for second place at this point. Chorong going to deliver that first spot. Han going to get second place, followed by Banana. So nice recovery there by Banana, and Han also netting some much needed points.
Yeah, that is really huge for Han, picking those up. Getting second place, that's +7, so he's going to go up to 8. Not out of it by any means, but pushing him away from SangHyun in particular. All the players, when you look at the standings, you're always thinking, when you're bottom 4, who are the ones I need to beat? And sometimes even your goal becomes not to win, but to actually defeat those players and actually have a better showing than those players. As Han and Banana picking up 7 and 5 points respectively. Not out of the woods by any means, but you could see moving up the standings quite a bit here. And now their biggest opponent is going to be Yoon and Cosu, right? To actually break into that top 4. Still a ways away from it. We still need to see a consistent showing from these players, but at least step 1 is underway.
Yeah, 11 points for Han and 13 for Banana. Separate them from the threshold of qualifying as we're partway through the solo speed section of the tournament today. Getting ready to go into Glacier Snowbound Slopes. These players at the bottom of the pack, if they want to contest for those qualifying spots, they're going to have to start delivering right here, right now. And we're off. We'll see if Chorong is going to be able to take a top spot here again on the downslope here of Snowbound Slopes, as it looks like World, Summer, SangHyun, and Banana once again leading the charge, entering into some tight turns.
Yeah, really tight turns here on the Snowbound Slopes, and this is where you can really showcase, I think, one of the most obvious parts of Kart Rider Drift is actually your ability to drift on these wide turns here. And they end up getting sharper and sharper as you go down, but I mean, as you can see here, all going to go through the center path because it is the fastest. And big lead here for Summer right now, but not one that is unrecoverable, especially when we get the ski lifts where you could sometimes equalize that deficit. It's actually very close right now.
Yeah, top 4 is very close here. SangHyun covering a lot of ground, riding that momentum, and a little bit of an unfortunate collision for one racer there. It's going to give SangHyun some room to maneuver. He's going to take a bit of a more dangerous line here, coming down the center of the track. Try and save as much time as possible. And look at how tight the race is here in the top 4 as we're entering.
There's the ski lift. And this is where sometimes you can make up that deficit as everybody's going through. Summer, World, and Cosu still the top 3 as Han's competing very aggressively. It would be huge if Han could take a dark horse win here and take that first place, add 10 points. That would really push him away from some of those players he's competing with right now for qualification. And right now he's taking the lead. This is so important for Han right now if he can actually maintain it here.
Absolutely, and Han actually creating a little bit of a separation between him, Cosu, DogWorld, and SangHyun. So if Han's able to maintain this, he will get some much-needed points heading into the last couple of tracks. To follow that story closely here, though, is a lot of more players coming in on these technical turns. I mean, I know you said they're wide, but let me tell you, when I'm racing on this one, they feel narrow, Wolf.
Well, they certainly do. Everyone's going through the middle. Han's dropped back to 4th. 4th still decent for him, but he would obviously love to get a higher place here. Top 2 in particular is really what he's looking for, but now he's in the tight pack here away from the leaders and dropping rapidly.
Yeah, some unfortunate collisions with a lot of players. They're almost getting swept. He's going to drop all the way back to 7th place, and now World and Cosu here contesting 1st and 2nd spot. These guys have a lot of points already under their belts. We're entering the finishing line.
Nice World
in a commanding position. Cosu just right behind him.
Really nice block there from World, actually getting that collision there with his rear view mirror. And with the rear camera, you can see the approach angle of who's behind you and then knock them back like that. That was really well played. If he doesn't actually do that, the draft comes through and there's a pretty good chance that it almost becomes a 50-50 who's going to win there at the end. But one good block. And World, with a great performance today, is going to grab 10 points. Cosu will take the 7. Unfortunately for Han, who was in the lead there at the beginning of that second lap for so long, will only take 1. SangHyun and Banana also down here at the bottom. And now it's really a race between Yoon and Summer at this point in time for qualification. Not that it's impossible here for Han, but he's going to have to overperform. And if Chorong or DogWorld take the next 2, that's the end. So you're really running out of time. You probably have 3 tracks left realistically here to turn this one around.
For Han, from here on out, it's going to take pretty much nothing but first place finishes if he's going to try and contest those top spots. Maybe a second, but that's about as far as it can stretch. So really, at this point, it's a competition between the top 5 in this group to see who will be eliminated and which 4 will advance to the round of 16 here at the KDL preseason. Let's go to Forest Zigzag Timber.
Time to zig and it's time to zag as we move to our 6th round of Group C here for the individual portion of our tournament.
You just had that one in your pocket,
oh,
didn't
I
you?
did. You know I did.
This is a very fun, very precarious, and very dangerous track as it kind of has a bit of the same feel as Terracotta Twister does, where there's a lot of really sharp, windy turns, a lot of very technical turns, a lot of potential for collision and for mishaps. You see one player right there, SangHyun, I believe, falling to the bottom of the pack with a bad collision there. Chorong, as consistent as he has been, once again in 1st place.
Yeah, you got to feel for SangHyun here too, because he needs to play aggressively. If he doesn't get a good start, he has to take massive risks here to hope to get into the top 3 and contest for that 1st place spot, because his score is so low at 5 with Banana. But taking high risks means that your chances of getting that collision are falling behind, or even worse, so it just feels doomed at this point in time. As Chorong still maintaining that lead.
Quite a bit of separation as he's actually, I think, out of drafting range from Summer and World. So unless they're able to take some really tight lines and close the distance on him, it's going to be a hard-fought battle to catch up to Chorong as he's starting to run away with this thing.
Yeah. So we're moving into our final lap here. You know, weirdly, World and Summer can kind of use drafting together as a team to actually catch up on him, and it looks like they kind of are, intentionally or not, as they're going to be able to utilize draft each other to finally close that gap. But you can see Summer can now get into range here of Chorong, but Chorong's turns have just been so incredible. You can draft on him, but you can't keep up with him unless you can drive as well as he can. And right now, Summer is on the cusp of it, but Chorong's knowledge of this track is just so deep.
He's taking beautiful lines coming into all these turns, just maintaining as much spread as he possibly can despite all the drifting, all the drafting coming in from Summer and World. They're just not able to close the distance on Chorong just yet, and we maybe have 1 kilometer left here on this track for entering the final laps. This race in the top 3 about as close as it's been, and a big collision there. Chorong losing some momentum, and now World in first place.
Oh, World might be able to do the back-to-back to take it to 40 points here. Chorong hot on his tail, but it's so hard to pass here. We are very close. It's about 10 seconds away from this one. 500 meters to go. Chorong, he had the lead the entire time. Can he steal it back?
He's trying to draft World to get into that position, but no. World will be able to secure that win. Chorong and Cosu right behind him. Banana and Summer following in 4th and 5th place, as we're kind of solidifying the top 4 right now, and we have to see the standings, exactly what is separating position 4 and position 5, because at this stage, that is really all you have to have your eyes on.
Yeah, you really do. And for DogWorld, all it takes is a first place finish. So if you are below the cutoff line right now, you're hoping that DogWorld does not actually take a 3rd first place here in a row, because any other scenario means you buy at least 1 more round. As you can see, he's 3 points away with the 7 points Chorong gets there. But right now, it's between Summer and Yoon realistically here, and Yoon needs to do well. Hope Summer also falls below, and that that World does not actually take first place. Keep calling him DogWorld sometimes, because that's what his name says, even though he's World. And look, this is the most intense part here. Because also, if you're World, you're like, man, if I get another win in a row, I'm taking first place in this group. It's done. As we are going to move into what could be the final track here if he does get that first place. Desert Construction Chaos.
And here on Desert Construction Chaos, World's gonna look to try and close out the solo speed section of today's tournament. In 4th place right now, Summer in 4th, Yoon in 5th with 8 points separating them. So if you're Yoon, you gotta have a better position here than 8th place. You gotta be gunning for 1st, you gotta be gunning for 2nd if you wanna close the distance. Otherwise, the top 4, you can just ship it all the way to the round of 16.
Well, luckily for him, Summer is also down at the back of the standings, and that's the one person you really don't want to be at the top. Is also World dropping down to 8th now, so this is anyone's race, and suddenly the chances for Han feeling ever so more hopeful. But it's going to take a lot more than a top 3 finish here. You really need to be pushing into top 2 right now. As Chorong, the pinnacle of consistency, he is just not going to drop. May have caster cursed him for a moment, but I mean, he's still up there.
He's so good, he's even impervious to the caster curse, man. He's immune. Look at him just continue to roll along here, trying to draft Yoon to close the distance, take another tight line. We'll be able to pass Yoon there and get top 3 again. And my eyes right now, they're on World, who's in 5th place. If he's able to somehow make a miracle comeback here in the 2nd lap and secure that 1st place, he will be the winner, and the race will be concluded today. But if not, we will go to at least 1 more track. So if you're Yoon right now, gunning for that top 4 spot, that's what you're hoping for. You do not want to see World come back, but World, he's so good. The favorite entering this track, entering today's race to advance into the round of 16, and he's almost gone from 8th place in the first roll.
He's fighting for this, and so this race between Yoon and Summer is their final one. If he does actually get that first place, is Yoon with some really nice aggressive turns. He's taking some big risks here, but he's pushed into top 3, 2 places ahead of Summer right now. Regardless of whether this is the last track, you absolutely want to be pushing the distance ahead. Now he's in first with some collisions. Yoon, he is pushing his way maybe to a top 4 finish here.
Yeah, Yoon in first place right now with only 500 meters left to go. Summer right behind him. It all comes down to this turn right here. Summer taking the inner line. He was greedy for it because he knew he needed to be, but instead Yoon going to get the points, those much needed 10 points. And with Summer finishing in 3rd place, that gap has become so much closer.
It really has. And, you know, if you look at the standings, you're going to see Yoon jumping up pretty significantly. Now, Summer with not a weak performance either, so they're going to be very close. And we take a look at where they actually stand here. But 10 points to Yoon, Summer picking up 5. That's 5 points closer. You've actually closed the gap. As for World here, picking up only the 4. So now he needs to get top 2 in order to end our race. So we might even have some additional tracks to come through as, wow, Summer 3 points ahead of Yoon still, but it is very close, neck and neck, to decide who is going to qualify to the next round. So that's going to be one of the things that we keep an eye on, is the individual competition between those 2 players within the race itself.
Yeah, because that is the qualifying line. It's only the top 4 that can advance to the round of 16, and right now only 3 points separating Summer and Yoon. Yoon with a fantastic finish there. His fans coming out, they want him to advance to the round of 16, and right now he is standing at the precipice, going from an 8-point differential to a 3-point differential. Coming into Boom Hill Tunnel, which very well could be the last track if World is able to deliver a stunning performance again.
And if World gets top 2, the race will end. So that is why it is so important for Yoon and Summer to keep an eye on those players to see where they're going to finish, because World obviously wants that 1st place for higher seeding, but it is all about for the rest of the competition to see where those 2 players land. And if he does not get top 2, we'll have another race on our hands. We'll get one more chance as we're moving into Village Boom Hill Tunnel to see which one of these 3 players is going to come out on top. Off we go. 6 points is the difference between World's 44 and the 50 required to finish the group in 1st place. 10 points is for 1st, 7 is 2nd. If he gets 3rd, he'll just be 1 point shy.
Yep, we'll see if World is going to be able to deliver a top 2 performance here and close out the competition here on Saturday. But right now, Summer, Yoon, and Cosu in the lead here as we enter this winding road portion here on Village Boom Hill Tunnel. Keep in mind, this is a 1-lapper, so every position matters. Every bump, every mistake, every draft, you got to take the best possible line.
Summer looking really good right now, has a significant lead.
No.
Oh, this is rough for Yoon.
Oh, no. Disaster here for Yoon.
Especially when you consider DogWorld's in top 3. All he needs to do is pass one of these 2 players, and Summer's advancing.
Not only is World in top 3, but Summer's in 1st place.
Yeah.
So things looking very dire here for Yoon, as we might have secured the top 4 spot here. We'll see now entering this very tricky shortcut. All these players much better than me, able to navigate it. They didn't even press R even once.
Nope. For me, I call it press R to retire. Summer's going to finish it.
Yeah, that's Summer basically securing his top 4. Yeah, that's number 2 for World.
Because World's top 2, so individual race is complete. Summer has secured his spot in top 4. And it is going to be World, Cosu, Chorong, and Summer who will advance to the round of 16. Summer, a shaky start, you know, in this, because he won early on, but then dropped to those bottom places for tracks 2, 3, 4. Looked like he might not advance because he wasn't as consistent as Cosu, he wasn't as consistent as Chorong. But picking up 10 points here is going to do it for him. DogWorld will finish, I call it DogWorld again, World will finish with 51 points here. Those are our top 4. DogWorld? Hey, look, you chose this ID, not me.
It's the first day, man. You'll get it.
Cosu. Summer ends up taking 3rd, actually, and will pass Chorong because of those 10 points. And unfortunately, Yoon, 7 points behind here. That one collision early on really did him in.
Yeah, just getting hung up a little bit there on the wall was Yoon, and that's got to be a heartbreaker as he won the previous track. He put himself in striking distance for qualifying for the top 16, but instead, it will be World, Cosu, Summer, and Chorong advancing from Group C in what has been one of the more entertaining groups that we've had so far. You look at the roster that we had, Group A and Group B just absolutely stacked from top to bottom. I mean, it was a star-studded performance, but there was so much drama here in Group C, even coming down to the final track in terms of who is going to qualify, who's going to go home. And our victors could not be more happy to be advancing to round of 16 in the first preseason here for KDL.
Yeah. Summer, such a young player, and had an incredible performance tonight. Clutched it when it mattered most in that final track. Really impressive to see. Unfortunately, some of our more popular up-and-comers, Banana and SangHyun, who haven't had individual results, haven't been able to take any titles, but are very fun players, you know, ones who like to do ceremonies and stuff like that, really just not able to show up today. As Han as well, in his debut, had some moments for sure, but couldn't stick the landing. I feel like he has a great future ahead of him, and he was finally able to do his debut today. But that's the nature of Kartrider. You know, you train so hard, you qualify, you get COVID, you don't get to participate, you do it again, you finally get your chance to compete, and it's just one group. You don't perform, see you next season, you know, in the qualifiers. It's just that tough.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what really separates players like World and Cosu from everybody else on the field, you know? It's that consistency. It's every single race. They might not be winning, but they're contesting, you know, top 2, top 3, top 4.
Chorong as well.
Chorong as well. Just right out of the gate in almost every single race, he was right there in the top 3. So a lot of very powerful racers here coming up to give us a show here in Group C in kind of unexpected fashion.
Yeah. Take a look at today's results to see how it all shook down, because we did, of course, have our team matches earlier on, where we did see KWANGDONG FREECS take a 2-0 over Sensation in fairly dominant fashion. The team item battle was much closer than what we saw in the speed race.
Yeah, but you look at the last 3 maps and it was a sweep, so.
True.
KWANGDONG FREECS coming back from an 0-2 deficit to win item and avoid the ace match there. They will be very happy with that victory. As a brief look here at Liiv SANDBOX versus ReBoot, and just complete dominance from SANDBOX. It felt like every single track they were just in complete control. Even in item mode, they were just on another level.
Yeah, they really were. Taking a 6-0. The team to beat right now in KDL Preseason, just absolute dominance. You know, Insu and Neil with so many of the track records also here early on. You know, some of those records may be broken in the coming seasons, but for now, I mean, they're just leading the pack so hard. It's hard to compete. It feels like everyone else is competing for second. And these are our standings, of course, with Liiv SANDBOX having 5 rounds to lead over KWANGDONG FREECS. 5 rounds after playing 2 matches. That's just absurd. I mean, 6-0 will do that for you, but Liiv SANDBOX are just a force to be reckoned with, not just because of Insu and Neil, as you said, who are speedsters that can hang with the rest of them, but their item ace Jimin absolutely coming through in the clutch with the play calling here today. 3-0 item sweep. Gunsu, a great hybrid player, and SangHyun just doing his support role, sweeping the opposing players and, you know, giving Liiv SANDBOX's speed demons the room they need to excel and thrive as we wrap up Group C. And tomorrow, we'll be here again, same time, same place, as we go into Group D. And the solo match, it'll be Minsik Ding, Jimin, Acid Fly, who I know you're looking forward to, Wolf. I think Acid Fly is a pretty good player, one of the dark horse in this group. I think Speed is a big standout for a lot of people. And then Ding, of course, a player that has been a very big standout. Jimin, the item ace, of course, for Liiv SANDBOX too, performing tomorrow. So I think Jimin also a player that, even though he is the item ace, a lot of people might put him as an underdog here. I think somebody you should watch out for. If he's good enough to be picked up by Liiv SANDBOX, I think his solo run is going to be strong. Item ace or no, if you're on Liiv SANDBOX, you're probably contesting almost any tournament you enter, at least for the round of 16 is my take. So we'll see exactly how Group D is going to shake up tomorrow, of course. And guys, for you watching there at home, make sure that you keep your eyes peeled and you get your friends, you know, come tune in, let them know. KDL Global, it's around. There is an English broadcast here for Kartrider, as these will be the upcoming matches there tomorrow. Rocks Esports facing off versus Planet in match number 1, followed by Finale Esports versus Aura. Yeah, I think both of these matches should be very close, actually. I don't think we'll see any blowouts tomorrow. Planet kind of coming up bigger than people expected. Finale has a lot of strong players on their roster. And Rocks Esports, even though they got 2-0'd by KWANGDONG FREECS, we know KWANGDONG are one of the, you know, top 2 teams right now in KDL, and Rocks definitely could bounce back in a big way. I think that tomorrow's matches should be very good, and I think we'll probably see a little bit of a closer back and forth, maybe some ace matches. So, are you casting tomorrow?
I don't think I'm on the roster for tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't think so, because I don't think I think tomorrow we're definitely seeing ace matches, and that's why I was kind of trolling you a little bit, because I think tomorrow is ace match.
I'll get him eventually.
The percentage chance of ace match is very high tomorrow, let's just say.
Yeah, not just because I'm not there, man. It's going to be some pretty close ones. And one that I'm going to be watching from home with a lot of excitement is Finale Esports versus Aura, because Aura Esports, especially in the first weekend, was the team that impressed me the most, specifically in item mode. You know, like we have a lot of speed demons like Liiv SANDBOX that can not only, I mean, yeah, they're probably the best speed racers, but they're also really good item racers. But Aura, they kind of felt like item specialists there that first weekend, and Finale Esports also really good.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Follow the channels, of course, on YouTube and Twitch, so you guys will know when we're live. Speaking of, we'll be back tomorrow for more KDL. See you then.